All right, welcome everyone to episode. I always
whatever.
Yeah. All right. I'm glad that you're down with the whatever.
Yeah.
All right. I have an amazing guest now. One of the leaders of the Yoyo influencer movement, who's been on the grind with it for a long time. Some people are just kind of hopping into this whole Yoyo influencer thing, and they have very quick success because how the algorithm is weighted right now. And congratulations on them. That's amazing. But like the guy who I'm interviewing today has been grinding this the F out for upwards of like 6 or 7 years now, like learning from the beginning before TikTok and Reels existed, trying to figure out how to make Yoyo work on YouTube before there was a template. He was one of the originators, the founders that laid the template. Did you ever win Australian Nats?
I did.
Australian national champion.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
National Yoyo champion here. Brandon Vu.
Thank you for having me on, Tyler. I'm really excited to get into this.
No,
and,
thanks for
it's an honor
being
to
here.
be honored to be on your podcast, man.
Dude, thanks so much for being here. Thanks for I want to say thanks for coming to America, but it's not one of those. Right now, it's a very piss poor time to be an American on the world stage.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm glad I'm here. I've been having a really good time. I've spent a bunch of time in LA, and now we're in like New York City.
How long were you in LA for?
I came there for like a month, and I was kind of like, it was to kind of like prepare for. No, it wasn't a month. It was probably like 2 weeks to prepare for like U.S. Nats.
If you're not used
division.
to like the LA lifestyle though, and it's like kind of slow paced and no one's doing shit all day, you wake up late. Like,
yeah, it was weird. I mean, I think with LA you need a car, and I was kind of
yeah.
like marooned in like Evan's apartment. No, nothing on it. I mean, all I wanted to do was kind of like yo-yo and practice, but it was I definitely like the vibe in New York better. You can kind of like walk around.
Really?
here,
Okay.
And so
that's interesting.
I don't know. For me, like I've kind of like spent time in both right now, and I prefer New York.
That's sick. Yeah.
Yeah.
New York is a little bit more open of a canvas, like as far as what you want to do. Like LA, everyone's very set in their ways, and like you said, you were just like kind of in Evan's apartment. You need a car to go places. Like New York, you just go. Even if you want to go to Jersey, like it's just a train ride over. You went to Connecticut or Vermont to see Lucas. Where'd you go?
Yeah. So I went. So for those of you guys who don't know, I kind of like.
Sorry, I hope I'm not. If you want me to not, I'll wait to put this out for a few weeks.
Oh no worries. No. I was just gonna intro Lucas, but Lucas is another like yo-yo TikToker, and he reached out and he was like, "Hey man, do you want to like come to Connecticut?" I was like, "Hell yeah, I want to come to Connecticut," and I went there, and there wasn't much there. But
I was gonna say, when you originally agreed to that, were you like, "Oh, cool, another adventurous part of the United States," or was it just?
No, to be honest, I kind of knew what I was getting into because I watch a lot of Casey Neistat vlogs, and
oh my gosh,
Casey grew up in Connecticut, and like every now and then he'd vlog there, and it just looked like greenery everywhere. So I kind of knew what I was getting into, but I kind of wanted to check it out.
It's
anyway.
okay. It's nice. It's not like too bogan or whatever the word would be. Australian slang.
that would be the word.
I mean, like. Because there's parts of New Jersey where, like, even if it is lush and green, it's still just like the people there are not very savory, and it's just like, oh god, yeah, like everyone's mean.
I didn't really meet anyone other than Lucas there, but like everyone seemed pretty nice.
Did you eat any pizza there? They say like the best pizza in America is in
I
Connecticut.
did actually. Wow. Oh, I didn't know that it was famous for pizza.
Yeah, that's funny. It's like they say the water in different states like affects the dough differently, so they rave about it. And yeah,
it's funny you mentioned that. We did have pizza. It was pretty good. So yeah, I guess I don't know. I can't attest to that. The pizza was pretty good.
I feel like Australian pizza is probably pretty good too. It's
really?
I've never been, but I just feel like it's one of those dishes that like I don't know.
Australian pizza is smaller for sure.
I feel like just the portions in general are smaller, right? Because
I feel as if like the portion's not really, but pizza is definitely smaller.
I feel like you guys have a more nutrient-rich diet. Like you guys eat better food.
It's funny, like
so you can eat a little less.
It's funny, like Australians like to razz on Americans with like like Americans are fat or whatever.
Yeah, because we eat fortified air most of the time. It's just deep fried.
But like
air
the whole like weight
with B12 sprinkled on the top.
Yeah.
Or you say, I'm sorry, the whole weight.
No, but like the whole like weight, like obesity thing is pretty bad in Australia as well. So it's
is it really though, or just comparatively? Because like I'm sure in Australia there's significantly less people, so it's like I don't know, seeing that people are more overweight. Like when I was younger and we would see exchange students come, it would be crazy to see how much weight they would gain and how American diets would just eviscerate their skin because it's like they're not used to eating like awful food 5 or 6 days a week. And in America, that's just so par for the course. They're like, oh, pizza's not that bad for you. And it's 200 calories a slice. It's like, oh, whatever. You burn 3,000 calories a day. Like, no, that's not how this works. Like,
I think, I don't know. I definitely think that I've been eating unhealthier since I've been in the US.
Oh, 100%.
Just because it's like, it's cheaper and more convenient to eat junk food here.
Yeah.
That being said, like, I'm a bit of a man child. I haven't really been cooking. So I've just been eating like fast food, whatever's like fast and convenient. So I've probably been putting on weight. But I don't know if there's a massive difference in like the data of like who's obese in Australia versus the proportion of who's obese in America. But I don't know. I could say like I've been a little bit unhealthier while I'm here.
Is it pretty expensive between like eating shit food in Australia, like American type food, versus eating like a better diet? Like in America, it's like very, like you can be very poor and like still eat, you can eat McDonald's 5 or 6 days a week because you can eat it for like $4 or $5 a meal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then retrospectively, if you want to buy like the ingredients for a salad, like it's gonna probably still cost you like $4 or $5 in the grocery store, which normal American would consider it's expensive, even though I just feel like Australians have a better cost benefit analysis because everything's more expensive, you know?
Yeah,
so like,
I think fast food in the US is cheaper.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
So I think it's almost like, I don't know, this is me like making a generalization. I don't know what the macro of this is, but I think like you can get some pretty solid deals. Like I was like living off like El Pollo Loco and like Taco Bell, and I was
In
like
LA.
Surprised at how cheap it was.
Those, you really picked the best ones. El Pollo Loco has like pretty amazing ingredients for a fast food restaurant.
Yeah.
And then Taco Bell is like, as far as if you want to like gauge healthy fast food, that's like the S tier one where it's like everything is like soy based and just has beans and rice. And unless you get the one that's like packed with ranch and red meat, and it's just like, all right, that one's probably not as good.
I mean, I based my diet off what was close to like Evan's apartment, so it didn't really like phase me too much.
How was that staying with Evan? Was he just practicing hella for nationals, or?
You know, you'd be surprised actually. I think people underestimate how much Evan practiced in. So we're talking about Evan Nagel, like 2018 World Yo-Yo Champion,
leading up to 21.
Yeah. And he grinded like 5 hours a day for like an entire year to like win that contest.
Which is crazy.
Which is nuts.
Yeah.
And like when you say that, you're kind of like, oh yeah, like, but like, I don't know. I would implore anyone in the audience to try practicing 5 hours a day for like a week.
It's insane.
It burns you out. So, I mean, everyone was like, was Evan grinding really hard? And I was there probably leading up to about 2 weeks before nationals. And like, honestly, he was probably putting in like an hour every other day. But
when you've put in that much like previous effort, it's kind of like you said, it's like burned into your psyche.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's more about just getting into the groove and the mindset of like, all right, I know what I want to do. Like I feel confident and good about it. And like, I haven't watched this freestyle yet, unfortunately.
It was clean. It was very, very clean.
Sorry.
But also Evan's the kind of guy that will always have a yo-yo in his hand.
Yeah.
So like if we're out or we're like
he's always practicing.
Hanging out, he's always playing with it. So maybe that's another part of like practice that always factors in. But like, I don't know, like seeing Evan play and seeing how clean he is all the time really gives you an idea of like the difference between levels of like yo-yo players.
Yeah. When I was on Yo-Yo Factory, like the first time I went to Japan, Ben was just like talking to me and a lot of the other Yo-Yo Factory guys and was like, it's going to be hard for a lot of you guys to final at 44 Clash. Like, luckily, because I was like white, they gave me a seed. There's like, oh, like, but everyone else, they like made them do prelims and stuff. And he was like, they're good over there. Like everyone over there is polished and practiced. And like, I was watching this Kobe Bryant interview a few weeks back and he was talking about how, like, if you wake up and practice at like 4 a.m. and then you practice from like 4 till like 6 or 7 and then you like take a break and go do whatever else and then you practice again like a lunchtime practice and you practice like an evening time practice like a professional athlete practices and then like but other athletes might only choose to do like the lunchtime and evening practice and they're already pro, so who cares? But like when you, like you said, you do that year of math and it's like you're already 1,000 hours ahead of these other guys and you can't catch up to that. No matter how many extra hours you put in, you're gonna have to put in a whole extra year of doing that extra morning session and hope that I don't put in that time for the other time. Like when you put in that much time that you, like you said, that Evan previously has, it's so burned into you that it's a little bit easier to go perfect. Like
and I think I've actually seen that Kobe Bryant clip as well.
Oh yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, I've seen that exact one.
It's a good one.
Yeah, no, I mean it's one of those like, I don't know, sometimes it can be a little cliche and it's like on Instagram and it's got like, you know, a lot of like inspiration. But I do think that like a lot of people underestimate like what effort does on like a longer timeline. Everyone's trying to like, I don't know, do things in a very short timeline, and people like they like underestimate like the compound gains that happen over like years.
Yes, the compound gains is a funny way to put it. In America, they have this account that the government will set up for you called a Roth IRA.
Oh yeah,
where like when you invest money into it every year, it allows the government to then like invest that money and hopefully they make more money.
Yeah,
but the interest will compound, and a lot of Americans just have this crazy idea that they're like displaced millionaires and one day they're gonna like strike it rich or something. But it's like if you just invest money in this Roth IRA every year, like a very minimal amount, like a couple $100 a month, and max it out every year, like you can be a millionaire by the time you're like 50 or 60 and just have this money.
Yeah,
but like no Americans think about it that way. They just hear about people getting rich off Bitcoin. They're like, how do I not know about it? I miss out every time. And it's like, there's literally a system here for you that that puts it in place, but you hate the government.
Yeah.
So, right? I get it. Okay.
Yeah.
It is what it is. But that's funny that you bring that up. What else is Evan doing right now? I'm not going to talk about Evan anymore after this.
No. I mean, I'm happy to talk about it.
Because you stayed with him for 2 weeks.
Yeah,
so
no.
it's
I mean,
interesting,
I think I've developed a pretty solid relationship with Evan. He's working on a lot of music.
Okay, yeah.
He's doing,
that's what I was gonna ask.
Yeah, he was doing a lot of music. I think he's in a position right now where he's trying to kind of like find himself. He spent a lot of time being at the absolute top of yo-yoing and kind of like dominating and dunking on everybody. And I think he's in a transitional period where he's trying to get to that level with music. And I definitely think he's going to get there, but he's in like a transitional period.
It's harder with music when it's not as like, you can put in a lot of work to music, and like if you just don't, it takes a lot of time to develop taste, and like Evan is like, Evan is taking the approach to making music like how yo-yoers should approach everything, where it's like, do you see what I can do with a yo-yo? Like I can do fucking anything. If I'm 1% in yo-yo, I can be 1% in anything. Like if yo-yoers had that confidence, they would like rule so many industries, but they're just like, oh, I'm good at playing with this toy, I guess. And like, he's really like, in the way, where he lives in LA, he's street performing a lot, it looks like, or he's going out to like Venice Beach and performing. And it's like, normal people aren't doing that. Like they're not like, it's a way that like stand-up comedians or like street performers go about it, where it's like the more time that I'm on the stage and busking, like, the more experience I have. Like that's how Evan's looking at it, where it's like a game of numbers, and it's like if I'm just out there and like enough people see me, like they can't take no for an answer at that point. It's like, it's kind of true, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, like, I think most people don't even go for like what they actually want. Like most people work jobs that are like societally acceptable, or like, you know, mom and dad want me to do this and like this is gonna be great. So I think the fact that like Evan comes from like an affluent background, he's able to take like risks like this, and I think it's really cool. It's really inspiring.
I'm glad you bring that up. I wasn't gonna say that because that doesn't take anything away from his accomplishments. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
Like,
I mean, the reason I said I'm like razzing on Evan a little bit is because I'm kind of in a similar situation. But I think,
but both you guys work really hard. Like I didn't know that about you, but I wouldn't. Still,
I mean, it's not like his parents are loaded. His parents like very, very affluent.
But I still wouldn't take that away from what you guys have accomplished. Like just because that you have a little bit more resources to fall back on, like you should be taking advantage of that privilege you have and like trying to do these things that are going to better the world and like make you happier. Because like most kids in your position are just going to be like, all right, like I'll just get another white collar job that I'm miserable at because I want to live up to my, not even their parents' standard, but like, that like you realize like, okay, I'm gonna have to work really hard or get a job that I make a lot of money at to live the same lifestyle my parents have provided for me. It's like the rich kids golden handcuffs, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think having perspective of the privilege allows you to leverage it a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah, Evan's doing that.
That's good though that you have it reined in, you know what I mean? And you're like, you're taking advantage of it like in a good, you know what I mean? Like you're really, you're doing it. Like you're not just like living at home and doing the yo-yo thing or like, I don't know. It's cool to see. That's awesome, man.
No, I mean, thank you. That means a lot coming from you, Matt.
No, for sure. But yeah, that's cool to hear about Evan. I mean, I'm happy for him, and hopefully so many yo-yoers, when you see other influencers and celebrities able to leverage their fame so easily, where it's like George Clooney starts a tequila brand that now sells for $500 million, and it's like, yo-yoers like alcohol. Like, why hasn't a yo-yoer had a turnkey brand that they just have a fucking seltzer company? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it'd be so easy. You come to every contest with cases of free shit, and it's you make free, like, cool content with it. Like, there's even like I feel like yo-yoers miss a lot of opportunities with like co-branded partnerships where it's like you could be doing yo-yo tricks on like Ridge wallets, or you'd be doing yo-yo tricks on so many different things, and it'd be cliche and cheesy at first, but it's like you eventually find your footing, you know? Have you seen the campaign that Nike did in France with the dunk, like Quentin and all the other guys?
I saw a little bit of it.
And it's like, go ahead, I'm listening. I'm sorry.
No. I want to hear more about. What are your thoughts on that?
It's cool to see, but like when I was younger and like I try to equalize yo-yoing to skateboarding so much because I feel like the creative journeys and like the societal, like how people feel disenfranchised when they play with a yo-yo or skateboard, you know what I mean? They're like, oh, no one understands me, even though like everyone in the world is yo-yo. Like everyone has a lot more in common with you than you think, but like people play with the toy and then it disassociates themselves from it. But trying to relate it to skateboarding, and I forget where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
I mean, I've got a question for you. I've heard you make that parallel before, and I think it's very interesting. So what would you say skateboarding has done differently that has allowed it to blow up at a larger scale, whereas yo-yoing is a little bit more niche still?
It's inherently different. Like skateboarding is dangerous, so people it creates a level of danger. Like skateboarding is really popular in New York right now because it creates a public nuisance and it's a disturbance, and you're like grinding a ledge or a rail and people are walking around you and it's chaos and it's cool. It like adds that like NASCAR, like stock car level, like, oh, he might crash, like who knows. Yo-yoing doesn't have any of that really. Like that's why the general public kind of likes off string or like something where it looks like there's like a risk associated, or but other than that, it's very creatively driven where like most people who yo-yo don't care about the competition aspect of it, you know what I mean? It's very similar with skateboarding where like the world champion skateboarders, like they ascertain a lot of fame in the regular world just because they can tell everyone, oh, I'm the world champion. But like in the regular skateboard world, that doesn't mean shit. And like most of the time, luckily those dudes happen to be very very good skateboarders. So like the skill carries over. But like with yo-yo, it's like the guys who win are like, then they try to monetize it. And it's like when you try to monetize it, that's not exactly the cool part of yo-yoing. So it's like there's a serious divide there. And like that's kind of what I was going to bring up. Thank you for asking that question because it triggered my memory about the Nike question. And like in the Nike campaign, they're doing these like they're literally doing like orbits around their shoe, like leg orbits around, like it's called the dunk, the shoe they're doing. And like they're just doing funny shit like that. But it's like when I was a kid, explaining to other people, like in skateboarding, all of your sponsors are crucial. Like you have a bearing sponsor because you need bearings to ride a skateboard. Like when I first started getting sponsored, that's how I treated it. Like I was on Save Death, who didn't make yo-yos. They just made t-shirts and shit. And they were like collabing with other yo-yo brands. And then I got a pro model with Spy yo-yos. You ever heard of them?
Oh yeah. They're pretty,
So I had a pro model with them first, but I designed the yo-yo to play 5A well. And I was like 16 or whatever. And One Drop was just becoming a thing at the time.
Oh wow.
And the project was really cool. And I was also a 1A player. So I was like, yo, I should have a 1A sponsor and a 5A sponsor. Like, why not?
Did that work?
No, everyone was like One Drop didn't care because they only made one yo-yo. And I was like placing third at BAC. Like I was podium with Mark Mon and Yuki. Like while I was also winning 5A. Like they didn't care at all. But like the guy who owned Spy was like, he was like being a nice adult about it, but he was trying to point out to me like, what do you think people are going to think how your yo-yo plays for 1A now? And at the time I was like, who cares? Like I didn't design. I'm a 5A world champion. That's what's just sell the yo-yo. And like now that I'm a company owner, it's like that's so asinine to think about like as a kid. But you're a kid and you don't think about how these things work. And like, oh, this guy is spending thousands of dollars to make a yo-yo for me. And like, I'm just like, oh, I'll just use this other one in the way more prestigious division that way more people are gonna watch me compete in.
I mean, that's an interesting perspective though. I never really thought about it from that way. Like, 5A and 1A are different things, and technically you could use different brands. I never really even thought of it that way.
But imagine if you had, like, a lot of people are doing it now where they have Sochi as their string sponsor, and then they have their yo-yo sponsor. But imagine you had, like, if there was, like, a specialty pad company and you had a specialty pad sponsor or a specialty bearing sponsor, like, it's possible. But it's, like, that's how a lot of skateboarders actually are able to make a living. And, like, shoes is the biggest one because, like, a pair of shoes is like $80, $100. So there's margin in there to get like a $5, $6 royalty. Like shoes are like a crucial thing. It's a lifestyle like piece of clothing that even if you don't skateboard, the shoes could sell really well. Like I'm sure you've seen skateboard shoes that like they go beyond skateboard culture and they just become a part of regular pop culture where like the skateboard shoe is so popular that that skateboarder makes like an insane amount of money because they're selling tons of these shoes. But like a skateboard deck costs like $15-$20 to make and then wholesales for like $30-$35 and then the shop sells it for like $50-$55. And it like they haven't let inflation change it. Like everyone just makes less money. It's crazy. So but again back to like the Nike ad, they're doing these things that like are cliche and cheesy and it's like you don't really need anything to, like most people don't even wear shoes in the yo-yo, so many Japanese players go on stage at Worlds with no shoes on and it's like they're the swaggiest dudes out of all of us that have like the craziest sneakers and it's like oh they don't even wear them on stage, so but you don't need sneakers to yo-yo. It's not a crucial part and like so that's something that I've always in the past has prevented me from being like, oh, we should try to get Nike or a big shoe sponsor involved because like how are we gonna pitch this as like, and now those sneaker brands are starting to get involved with esports or things that again don't have anything to do with the sneaker, but it's just like they realize people are wearing a Nike sweatsuit while doing like the regular lifestyle activities that aren't athletic related. And even when starting Recess, I always love to bring up how popular youth sports are in America, like youth baseball, soccer, but like how hard it is to make it to the professional level of any of those. And no parent has any problem in the world hemorrhaging thousands of dollars to their kid to go play on all these teams and buy all the equipment. And a lot of times they'll play for one season and give up because they find out they're trash at it. And it's like yo-yo is such a low entry level and like you don't really need any resources. Like you can do it on your own. Like that's when I do these gigs with camps and stuff, that's kind of what the point I try to hammer home to kids is like you don't need permission from mom and dad to get better at this. They don't need to drive you to the basketball court. You don't need a whole team to get better. Like I remember playing Little League baseball and like trying to get better and just everyone else being trash and no one caring, and it's like yo, we lose all the time. Why doesn't anyone care? Like why doesn't anyone want to get better? And like I feel like yo-yo just has such a great template for anyone that's hungry to get better that they can put in that effort. And yeah, skateboarding and yo-yoing, there's a lot of parallels, but it's also very different. And just like the average skateboarder versus the average yo-yoer, there's levels of difference between their marketability and coolness. And like, I went to this meeting with like a real estate developer a few weekends ago. They have like a vacant space in Philadelphia that they have like artists or just local creatives come and curate events at the space, and they want to do a yo-yo night. And in my brain, I'm like, all right, like I want to do something that's going to attract more outside yo-yoers to this. Because I could probably get like 15, 20 yo-yoers to it, but it's like, who cares? They're all going to stay. It's going to be 15 grown men standing there not talking to each other, like yo-yoing and like doing really hard tricks. And then like the handful of people who aren't yo-yoers that come, they're going to be scared off because they're going to be intimidated by those guys. None of those guys are going to want to help the other people. And it's like, I'd rather get 50 non-yo-yo players and give them all free yo-yos, and hopefully one of them becomes a real yo-yo player or just cares beyond that, or I can get a school show out of it or something that will go beyond that one night. And that's kind of worth more to me than like, oh, I'll run a normal yo-yo club where everyone who already knows I exist and knows Recess exists. Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think with like yo-yoing and expanding yo-yoing, I think yo-yoers have a hard time communicating to anyone outside of the community. I think we're pretty good at communicating within the community because everyone really understands what's like.
There's a lot of telekinesis going on within yo-yo. Like, everyone can read each other's mind.
Yeah, everyone can kind of know, like, but like in order to like translate that to a broader audience takes a skill and takes a level of patience and takes a perspective shift that I feel as if like most yo-yos aren't really interested in like developing, right?
I mean, just like I was saying, it's an inherently selfish activity where you can do it alone.
Yeah.
You curate it to what you want to do. You only watch the players you want to watch. You buy the shit you want to buy.
Yeah.
If you're like a super conceited person that wants to buy the most expensive stuff, there's those
You
brands.
can do that.
Yeah, if you want to buy like the cheapest Alibaba stuff, you can. There's those brands. Like it's the whole spectrum is there, and it's like that's kind of another reason where like in skateboarding, like the influencers, like in yo-yoing, everyone is very welcome to it because yo-yoers are very inclusive and we want what's good for the best of the community. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So whatever raises awareness for yo-yoers, I'm always gung-ho about, and I'm like, please, we need more of this.
Yeah.
Other than when it's like the PewDiePie thing, how whether or not it was okay to piggyback off of offensive content to make yo-yo content, but just more so how yo-yo players want to do anything they can to expand the sport, hobby, whatever you want to call it. And skateboarding is quite the opposite, where like there's a lot of YouTube influencers in skateboarding and they actually will sell more than like the true blue skateboard like the skateboard companies that are core and like, because they have a wider audience, you know, they have millions of subscribers and like they get people more interested in learning. And like my most popular content are tutorials by far. Like I have a couple tutorials that get like, my channel is tiny, but I have a couple tutorials like hundreds of hours of views every month. And it's like for a 7 or 8 minute video, that's like kind of a lot of view time, you know? And you know, skateboarding is similar where like people want to learn how to do it more than they just want to watch someone do it. Like people are more interested in just like the casual partaking of it. People want to have fun. They don't want to like more people want to just have fun and casually learn than take it seriously and like be the best. And again, I don't want to talk too much more about myself, but like that's why I named Recess is because like so many people treat yo-yoing that way. It's not like a lot of people want to be the best or get good until they realize how like
what a grind it takes.
And like unsuccessful, and like it's very thankless, and like you get clout within the yo-yo community, but it's like you're cool to like all these prepubescent teenage boys, and then it's like it kind of looks cool on a resume, and then like the first question everyone asks, like, oh, how much money did you win, or like what is this or what is that, and then you're like, oh, like I like none, like it's whatever, you know what I mean? You're left like grasping at straws like to justify it. Like it's not always that cool. So
I mean, I'd be curious to kind of like dig into that a little bit deeper. Like when you won Worlds, what was that like?
what?
Like was it like, I don't know, like you're the best in the world at this thing? And
I don't know, even now like I make sure like when I do the camps and everything, like I open the show and tell kids I'm a world and national yo-yo champion, but when kids ask or like clarify that, I remember to remind them like not everyone who played yo-yo in the world was there that day, so it's not like it was a fair contest. It's not like just,
but it's still like you were the best in the world.
The best in that room on that day or whatever. Like it was cool. Like it was the thing I worked the hardest for a long time, you know, and it was something that I don't know, like it was. When I got into yo-yo, like I came from the skateboarding world and I was super young. I was like 10 or 11 and I was like, oh, I want to make a name for myself. You know what I want to get sponsors, like the regular thing that everyone else does when they first get interested in yo-yo. But like, I just kind of knew like a better way to approach it, or like I knew, because even back then people still did the same like cringy things they did now, where it would be like, they would make a video with your yo-yo and be like, are you going to sponsor me? But like, I kind of knew like the campaign and sweat equity you had to put into things. And I don't know. It was bittersweet because like at that contest, like the guy who's the national sales manager, even now to this day for Duncan still, he was like, oh man, like, thank you so much for using Duncan yo. He gave me like thousands of dollars of free Duncan yo-yos and they like gave me some money too. But he was like, yeah, but like Jack Rinka, the guy who's the team manager, he's like, he's never going to put you on the team. I don't know why. And I can't control the team. I can't make him put you on the team, but I'm just letting you know. So maybe if you want to play with different yo-yos and get sponsored, I don't know. It was just so funny. Like the guy who like literally he's making money off selling these yo-yos, and having a world champion on their brand would like exponentially make the brand that much more valuable. And he's like, I don't know, man. I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry. Like, please don't hate me. And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, Mike.
Well, that was
like,
a nice gesture for him,
he was great. Everything was fine. Like, and now, you know, retrospectively, being someone who's had to be a team manager now, like there's people who just aren't good fits for teams. And I don't think I was a bad fit for Duncan. I was just young and reckless and like I didn't fit the mold in that way. You know what I mean? Like it was a very like there's a corporate ladder there. Like it's owned by a big conglomerate and it's like you can't just be like a reckless 15-year-old kid like
fair enough
saying crazy shit. So yeah, it was great. Let's go back to you. This is your podcast, not mine. Learning how to yo-yo. When did you start yo-yoing? What year do you remember?
Yeah, I mean, I started yo-yoing in like 2009.
Okay.
So there was like a mini yo-yo boom then.
In Australia or like worldwide?
I think it might have been worldwide and it kind of hit Australia a little bit.
Was that right around when Blazing Teens was happening or right after?
It was different. It was probably like, it was a brand called like YoTech that kind of had blown up, which is like rebranded Yomiga. So I remember like Brains were like really big in like our sports stores.
Yeah. Australia has like a weirdly rich yo-yo history. What's that brand that made like the Black Mamba and Fat Yo? I think it was called Fat Yo actually.
I'm not sure. I know like the big thing in Australia, just like Coca-Cola yo-yos.
Yeah, Russell.
Yeah, Russell. So like that's the thing. Like everyone in the US is like, oh, is that a Dunkin'? We didn't really have that. Like everyone is like, I remember the Coca-Cola yo-yos.
Which is funny because like you said in America, no one remembers or no one has any idea about Russell, but like they sold 1 billion Russell yo-yos around the world.
I didn't know that. Wow.
And I mean they're a lot of countries you could exchange like bottle caps for them. It's like it was. I'm sure they only made like 10 cents a yo-yo on some of those when Pepsi was buying tens of thousands of them. But like 1 billion yo-yos is still
that's
a
lot of
yo-yos. Even if it is 10 cents a yo, it's millions of dollars still.
That's crazy.
Yeah, billion yo-yos. Yeah, and it was over decades, but still, yeah.
Still, I mean, that's why the yo-yo is as like a pop culture icon it is today. It's so ubiquitous. I mean, even if you don't know what we do, like everyone's familiar with a yo-yo, so it's
everyone's played yo-yo.
Yeah,
right?
It's interesting. Yeah,
it's that was a big qualm a few years back when fidget spinners came around because like public perception just sees that type of toy and then they're like, oh, like people who would have bought a yo-yo that bought a fidget spinner then went buying it. They didn't buy a yo-yo. They forego buying a yo-yo and bought a fidget spinner, and that was their like use of their skill toy purchase for that year. You know what I mean?
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was like 2017. Yo-yo just like went off.
Really? That's fascinating.
Like when kendama got popular, like yo-yo started to get more popular because people would get interested in kendama and then would get interested in yo-yo, and they're different enough skill toys that like it would drive people to want to learn other skill toys and like.
It's interesting how fidget spinners kind of like forego the yo-yo thing, but kendama's added to it. What do you think the difference is between that?
It's just the perception because people buy a fidget spinner thinking it's yo-yo related, and then a fidget spinner only does one thing and just spins around. And
I hated that whole fidget spinner
me
thing.
Too. But yo-yos are, as far as public perception is concerned, yo-yos are similar where it's like, oh, it just goes up and down. Like that's all you do. And they're great. And then most people can't even do that. They've failed at that. So they have this perception of like, I can't yo-yo, even though they've learned how to do it improperly. So it's like everyone just walks around thinking like, I can't do that. And they watch someone like you or I on a street corner do it and they're like, I definitely fucking can't do that. And it's like, right. Like I'm literally the 1% of the 1% of the 1%. Like you'd never want to be this good. I wasted so much of my time in life. Please don't ever do this. Like, just learn the basic shit.
Well, I feel as if with yo-yos, I mean, the stuff we do isn't actually that hard. Like any person could probably learn it.
People nowadays, I feel like the average time, if you really are focused and dedicated to learn, if you yo-yo for like an hour and a half, 2 hours a day for a year, you'll be to the skill level of you or I. You know?
Yeah,
what I mean?
Like you could get pretty good. Yeah. Like I mean, with all the resources they have today, like
and the yo-yos are just so good.
Oh yeah, they're cheap too. They're like good. Like they've got online tutorials.
Teaching kids, I teach kids on either a Spin Star or this Dunkin' yo-yo called the Dragonfly, which is like a transaxle. It has like a fireball piece in the middle.
Okay.
So you still get like 30 seconds. You can get a minute of spin time if you just do a sleeper. Yeah, and it's just to learn Rock the Baby, Brain Twister, Elevators, like simple shit. But like as soon as you give one of those kids that can like throw one of those perfect and learn the first 10 tricks on that, as soon as you give them a regular bearing yo-yo, it's like night and day difference.
Yeah.
Like they can do everything way easy. It's like a cheat code, you know what I mean? And it's it reminds you of like when you first started yo-yoing and like now it's so much easier for kids just to pick up an unresponsive yo-yo and like I hate to be like an old curmudgeon, but it really does. It's affected a whole generation of kids' style of how they yo-yo because it creates laziness where like
Yeah.
You don't have these boundaries of like, oh, you can't move a responsive yo-yo that way. It's gonna bite your knuckles. Like you don't have enough spin time, so you got to move a little faster. You got to do a little more finesse when you do this trick, and like you just basically have like a dead sleeping yo-yo that if you just drop an unresponsive yo-yo, it's gonna spin for a pretty good amount of time, and it's good and it's positive, but it's also like developed. It gives people like it prevents them from developing properly in some ways, you know what I mean, as a yo-yoer. But I think it does more good than harm, like ultimately.
Yeah, and I think
the cream's always going to rise to the top. Like the people who want to learn are going to put in the time and get better. And what were you saying? I'm sorry.
No, what I was gonna say was that like I almost feel as if I used to be of the philosophy that like there's no real point to having a responsive yo. You should just go straight to unresponsive. But what I realized is that like the unresponsive like stuff is difficult to learn, like binding and stuff. It's kind of like it's not fun to kind of learn that as like your first trick.
And like it's a big gap.
Yeah,
and
it's a bit of a gap.
Versus kendama, you just pull up, big cup, oh great. Like, and then everyone's like, oh shit.
Exactly.
Like you do a bind, it's like, did I do that right? Are you sure? And then everyone's like, oh cool. Right, yeah.
So like, if you start off with a responsive yo, the learning curve is so much like, I don't know, you can get like a satisfying experience with it. And I think that kind of parlays up to like eventually getting to the unresponsive and eventually doing all of that.
There's something to be said. I don't know. The more I teach, the more I'm like of the volition where like people who want to learn are going to learn. So if you give them an unresponsive yo-yo, they're going to learn how to, like, that's not going to be the barrier that prevents them from learning. It's going to be a tool to help them learn versus like most kids. It's so funny how kids now just want to learn DNA. Every kid at camp, every kid is wants to learn.
Really?
Every kid.
Oh, wow.
Like, like Walk the Dog died a long time ago.
Really?
Like, no kids really learned Walk the Dog. Like, they would ask how to do Rock the Baby, and they'd be like, oh, can you do TikTok? And like, can you do the clock trick? Like, the one that goes back and forth. It's like, oh, yeah, we'll learn that. But now every kid wants to learn DNA. And, like, even with Rock the Baby, you normally teach it with a dead yo-yo. Like, you stop them spinning, you just get them to do it. And most kids, that'll, like, satisfy them enough. Like, oh, cool. And they go around and show all their friends. Like, DNA is impossible to teach a kid.
It's difficult.
And there's no, like, all the yo-yos have a cap on it. There's no place for you to bounce on your finger or anything. So it's just, like, you try to teach a kid UFO and they don't know. And it's like, I don't know. Like, no kid's going to be able to learn how to do that. Like, if a person wants to learn how to yo-yo, they'll do it. Like,
exactly.
It wouldn't take that long, especially with a yo-yo with a dimple on it. Like, that's a cheat code too, basically, where it just auto-corrects. Like, you just got to learn the gyroscope to be able to straighten it out.
Back in our day, we had, like, yo-yos with dimples. I mean, like, yo-yos with caps on them, and it was really difficult.
What was your first yo-yo?
My first yo-yo was a Yo-Yo Jam Legacy.
Okay. That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a great yo-yo. How much was that in Australia?
I can't remember. I remember it was $21 US, and it was about 30, I don't know, it might have been like 30 Australian dollars. And I remember going on the Yo-Yo Jam site, like, I don't know.
And then shipping was like $20.
Yeah, like,
oh my
like
God.
$20.
So it was like 20 or it was like 40 or $50 to Jesus
But I love
Christ.
that yo-yo. That yo-yo was like sick.
It's great. I love that yo-yo. And I remember when that came out, I was working at a toy store that sold yo-yos at the time.
Really?
Yeah, like people were always like talking shit on Yo-Yo Jam. It came out at the same time that the 888 and the G5 and everything was coming out. So it was like, yo, this is a serious contender. Because like Yo-Yo Factory released the Velocity and it was responsive and everyone was like, oh, you guys could make a better plastic yo-yo, make an unresponsive one. And then they made the plastic grind machine like a year later, which was incredible.
That was great. Yeah, great for its time.
Even now, I think it's a great yo-yo.
Yeah.
But like, it was funny because everyone like fucked with that yo-yo really heavy. The Legacy, it was great, and it was like, I think most regular yo-yo stores, I don't know why it was so expensive. Maybe it was like the conversion rate, like you said, was like 21 USD or something. Because I swear it was like the Celcon or Palm yo-yos from Yo-Yo Jam were all like $15 or $18 or something.
The Legacy had like a metal ring.
Oh, that's right.
The
yes,
so it had like a washer pressed in. So like,
which is so funny because it was literally just like a washer, like a drop
it wasn't
cast
like a
washer.
Yeah, it
it's
wasn't
not
like a precision
machine,
rim or
right?
anything.
Yeah,
but I don't know. That yo-yo was sick. I really liked it, and it's funny. Like I've said that yo-yo on like a bunch of podcasts, and people are like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Oh man, I'm dating myself in this yo-yo world."
No,
but
I love that. Yo-yo.
Yeah,
that's a great yo-yo.
It's good to like,
Even now, I feel like that would be a great yo-yo. I feel like not enough. Like Yo-Yo Factory has a few Palm or Celcon yo-yos that are like the 1 star and one and all those yo-yos, but like for some reason they just like every few years they like change up whatever beginner yo-yos they make, and it's like, For beginners, those Palm and Delrin yo-yos, they're Palm and Celcon are like the generic versions of Delrin. They're like the best learners yo-yos. So you slam them into the ground.
They're
it's
durable.
Like, yeah, they're durable as hell. Like the colors look very cool. It looks like a toy. Like the acrylic yo-yos look cool too. Like the Spin Star and the Dragonfly and stuff. But it's like, they just don't spin for very long. Like they're great. Like you can learn the first 10, 15 tricks on them. Like I teach thousands of kids every summer how to yo-yo on them, but it's just like it for the kids who really want to learn, it like ends up debilitating them super quick because it's just they try to throw it really hard and then it snaps back and it's like, oh, you got to find that je ne sais quoi kid. Like, you got to be very careful with it. But yeah, like the one and that yo-yo. Like I feel like if they remade the Legacy, it would still be a great yo-yo.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I kind of miss when yo-yos were like that.
And people don't really care when they're buying a plastic yo-yo that it's super precision, especially if it was like $14, $15.
Yeah.
It'd be like, oh, like, yeah, they could vibrate a little bit. It'd be okay.
What's your opinion on the whole yo-yo vibe thing? I'm curious to get your take on that as a guy who's been in the game for a long time and has a yo-yo company.
Colin has spent time at my house watching me test first base and like can just like testify to like how many hours I've spent making sure all these yo-yos are meticulously tested, and like I get depressed if I sit there and think about how many hours I've tested first bases and how many of them went to beginner players that never even maybe put the advanced bearing in it. Like, but I've spent hundreds of hours getting those perfect.
And are you testing first bases for smoothness?
Yeah, I try to get everyone like glass smooth.
Oh my
like
God. First bases. That's like so.
But I've had like a amazing success rate, you know what I mean? As far as like, I've only had in the entire, since I've been selling the yo-yo, I've only had like 2 or 3 returns ever because they broke or got cross-threaded or whatever. And it's always a beginner player. It's never like an advanced player that messes it up.
That's pretty good, dude.
Dude, I know. And I've sold tens of thousands, like a lot of them. And yeah, a lot of people have learned with it. It's great. I've stopped using it so much at camps because it's like almost too good and like too durable. Like kids have bought them and then I see them 4 or 5 years later and I'm like, where did you get that really rare edition of first base that like we made 300 of? And like I brought to camp because I ran out of other first base. And then they're like, oh, like my brother bought it at camp. And it's like, oh man, like maybe I shouldn't be selling like super nice. You know what I mean?
Dude, the
like
first base is a good yo-yo.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's almost too good for like just entry level kids. It's like if you really want to dedicate time and learn and then put the advanced bearing in it, it's great. And it's like perfect for advanced players that want a plastic yo-yo. But like for very entry beginner level players at a school where it's just like
it's too good. It's like over-engineered.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it's just like it lasts too long. Like I know that sounds kind of crappy, but like some things that are used by children should have like a breakdown period. You know what I mean? Like, or just because I charge them less for it. Like I only charge them $10 for it at the school. So it's
okay.
Yeah, so they get like a deal. You know,
wow.
Like when a regular person buys it for $20, there's at least a little more. Like
they perceive it as high.
Yeah, they want to keep it around. There's an emphasis. They want to learn more of it or something. But like a kid just buys it. It's like, oh, cool, $10, yo-yo, great. And their parents are paying thousands of dollars for tuition for them to go to this summer camp. Like they don't care. It's a $10 yo-yo, great. But like I don't particularly care about yo-yo smoothness when I play personally with my yo-yos. I mean, it's annoying when I want something to be smooth. Like as far as my personal level of smoothness is concerned, I'm okay with like a 6 or a 7. I don't need to be like a glass smooth yo-yo recreation 10. But like when I test yo-yos, I try to get it to like a 9 or a 10 smoothness. You know what I mean?
Because that's pretty good. I'm probably like an 8. Like I don't know. My personal opinion on that is that like I don't care. It personally doesn't matter. But I do empathize with like the collector audience and all of that.
It's so few and far between, dude. Like, but again, I've only had one return for a recess yo-yo ever. That was like, oh, it vibrates a little bit. Man. Yeah, and everyone else has been content. But it's like.
So all those hours you're putting in isn't a waste.
I like to think not, but I also try not to think about the concentricity of the bearings either. Like I'm sure you get bearings that have like shit concentricity and you can just feel how much like they vibrate around. And then like when you play with those what are the Yo-Yo Wreck bearings? The double straight bearings, whatever they're called.
I don't even know what. Like,
whatever they're like
yeah.
super expensive, like $30 bearings. And when you just spin them in their bearing seats, they're just like perfectly smooth. Like everything runs smooth on the races. Like if you get a 10 ball from One Drop, it's the same thing where like they're expertly machined. Like the concentricity of the whole bearing is machined to like a similar concentricity of the yo-yo.
But I feel as if that like doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
I hope it doesn't, but like, dude, I don't know. Like, it's all junk science at a certain point. Because like, as soon as you take the yo-yo apart one time, like you're changing all the variables that you just set one time.
Yeah.
Like Ben used to hate at Yo-Yo Factory when I would spend too many hours trying to perfect things. Yeah, because like he would argue the same thing. He's like, they're gonna take it apart one time and it's never gonna be the same again. And like, we're not one of those brands that tell people don't take your yo-yo apart because like that's stupid. Everyone should be able to take their yo-yo apart. And like,
I'm surprised you're on this side of the fence. I was expecting you to be like, shit doesn't matter, and like,
I try to take pride in what I make. Like, I grew up with not much money. When I first got my goal to get sponsored was to get free yo-yo string.
Oh,
that's how broke
that's
how broke like my family was when I was a kid. I was just like, yo, I get to play yo-yo for free. Because like I played with like freehand zeros and stuff, so they were like $20 a piece.
Yeah.
And when you won a contest back in the day, you'd get like 5 or 6 freehand zeros. Like they were dime a dozen. So it was like, okay, cool. Like it was kind of like the poverty kid yo-yo.
What would you do? Take
the
the strings out of the freehand zeros and just use them for whatever?
Dude, when I was like really young, I used to like steal strings out of yo-yos from like Walmart and stuff.
You're a menace, man.
Because there was like the first once fast. It's funny. I went on to work for Yo-Yo Factory later, but like when the Fast 201 was in like Walmart and shit, they used to have like packaging where like the yo-yo would just literally pop out. It was like these 2 little like pegs that would like spin around in like the display, and you just. I never stole a yo-yo. I would just rip the yo-yo out and take the string off, and it had an extra string inside.
Oh, all right. So
it was just mad funny. But yeah, like when I was a kid, I was like, I need free string. Like that's what I care the most about. Like I can use one yo-yo and get better till the end of time. Like but, I need string, and yeah, it's funny because string is so cheap,
Yeah, like these days, it's. Not, I mean, I guess it depends what string you buy.
It was maybe like $15 or $16 a skein back then. That's what a bundle of string is called, a skein.
A skein, really? I've never used that word. Yeah, wow.
But that's an old school word. Yeah,
man, I wasn't familiar with that.
But yeah, now you can get generic string for like $10 a bundle or whatever, and it's like. Yeah, I don't know. So growing up that way and just not being super concerned then with the quality of the yo-yo, now like. And it's funny because our core demographic is like affluent white kid that like their parents don't even care. Like, oh, the yo-yo's only $80. Like, yeah, sure. At least it's not another PS5 or whatever. Like,
sure.
I don't know. Curdy will get mad at me sometimes when we do yo-yo gigs together. If like we're doing them for like Andre or whatever for his yo-yo store. It's called A to Z, or it's a toy store, but they sell yo-yos too. You've been there. I'm sorry, man.
Yeah, I've heard of it. I've definitely seen videos.
I thought you said you went there. My bad.
I went to Yo-Yo Expert.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm not sure. They're not the same thing.
No, they're not. It's just a toy store, but they carry yo-yos too. But like we did a gig for him, like basically at a state fair, but for like 2 weeks, and people would come up all the time and be like, "Yo, like what's the most expensive yo-yo? Like I want to buy the most expensive," and it would be like the Iceberg, so it's like $70. And then I'd be like, you don't want that, man. Like, you want like a $20 arrow or something. Like, you want to do DNA. Like, you don't want the Iceberg. Like, it's fine. And I'm like, and most of the time they didn't, you know what I mean? But the occasional here and there that someone would want one of those yo-yos, I'd be like, can you bind? Like, I'm not going to sell you this like absorbently expensive yo-yo, abhorrently expensive yo-yo for no reason that you can't even use. And like, of course they couldn't bind, or they'd be like, oh, I'll learn. I'm like, are you really though? Because like I'm gonna sell you this, and you're gonna go home and use it, and then you're not even gonna like take the time to learn how to use. Have you seen that meme where it's like yo, like where'd you get that? What restaurant are you at? And then the guy replies, he's like, I don't even think you would eat food like this if I didn't post this on my timeline, B. You're not in the refrigerator right now. You on Instagram. So turn your phone off, put your phone down, go in your refrigerator.
I haven't seen that meme, but I guess
that's how I feel about some yo-yos and yo-yos. But I don't know. I personally am not very picky, but like when I try to make yo-yos, I try to be very discerning because I don't want someone to buy it and then waste their money. You know what I mean? Because I try to treat it like every person is like that's their last dollar they're spending on their yo-yo. Have you ever heard of Motown Records in America?
What's that?
They made like all those famous old school songs, like the soul songs about like like the Temptations was the name of like one of their famous bands, but like there's a lot of famous American soul songs you probably know the names of or like you'd be familiar with, but they would have focus groups to like pick which record to release, like what's the single.
That's
and
cool.
and the focus group would be listening, and then the guy who owned the label would always ask everyone like how many of you would want to buy this record, like if you heard it on the radio, and maybe like 3/4 of people raise their hands. That was like, all right, you got $2 left, and like you're gonna buy a sandwich or this record, like which one are you gonna buy? And it's like, that's how I just try to pretend like everyone is gonna buy Yo-Yo, you know what I mean, where it's just like the quality is important to me, like the what you're buying is important, like you're getting your money's worth. Even when I go to camps and stuff, like I don't know, like I feel somewhat, because I grew up with not a lot of money, like, and I charge a lot of money, I want to make sure they get their money's worth. So it's like I try to make sure every kid at least can throw the yo-yo up and down, and every kid is getting an experience. It's not just like me going in and doing a couple cool tricks and whatever. But what about you? Because I feel like you'd make a lot of videos of you testing yo-yos for days on end. And it's,
I mean, my philosophy is, and it's like a balancing act, I think. I personally, I view the world as like a yo-yo competitor. I'm nerdy like that. And I think that like these things, they matter, but they don't matter in the grand scheme of things. So I'm less well, that being said, preface to
I'm
this.
glad you're choosing the word scare. I would have like later cut that out and post like, Brandon don't want to know.
Preface to this, like I do spend a lot of time half swapping yo-yos.
Of course you do.
I've got a kid who like, half swaps on my yo-yos. Everything is quality control before it goes out. That being said, my personal opinion
I feel like you're so brave even filming yourself doing it, because when I do that shit, if I like accidentally drop something, or I'm like putting something on the table that's not on like a towel, I'm like, some collector is gonna watch this and like gonna catch feelings, and then they're gonna look at their yo-yo and be like, oh, this one has a scratch on it, this one's bad. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But what were you saying though? Your personal feelings? Sorry.
No, my personal feelings are it doesn't matter. I think I'm probably more aligned with how Ben views the world, because I think that like yo-yos are meant to be played with, and like there are a certain population of yo-yoers that are like into collecting and into like resale value and all of that, and I empathize with that. But I don't know.
There's brands for that. If you're gonna be that kind of guy, buy the Yo-Yo Rec Yo-Yo, buy a G-Squared Yo-Yo.
My biggest thing is like if someone like when I see like one of my yo-yos like ding to hell and it's been used, that's satisfying.
Me. Do you ever try to go play with it after that? Ask the person. You're like, let me see how smooth this thing is. Like, I always do the same thing.
I try to do that, and it's like sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's good. But like the fact that it's being played with means that it's ultimately being used for what it was. Yeah,
people are creating sentimental memories with something you put your heart in. It's cool. It's that's a beautiful part about yo-yo, where you see this big reciprocal process of like you create something, you see someone else creating with it, like they're creating memories with it. They're
exactly.
Like, it's amazing. It's like such a cool process. What year did you win Australian Nationals?
So I won Australian Nationals. I went in 2011. I got my ass handed to me, and I was like young and arrogant and nerdy, and I wanted to win, and I honestly thought I could win because I mean I was watching like I like looked at yo-yoing from like a YouTube perspective from like an Australian kid. I was like, all right, these US dudes, these Japanese dudes, I can't take these guys. But like these Australians, they're pretty trash at yo-yoing. Like I could like take these guys. And I went to like 2011 ANYC. I got my ass handed to me. A bunch of like
who was like really popping then? Vu
was kind of like rose to power. He got really good. Mm-hmm. There were a bunch of like Chinese international students that were like
I remember that too,
that kind of came there. So I came in 5th out of like 12 people.
So good though,
which
for
is
nationals.
Decent. But
and you had only been yo-yoing for 3 years.
Yeah, I'd been yo-yoing for about 2 years.
But you're a kid, so like 2 years, you're like, oh, like I'd be a pro at something else by now. Like,
I mean, like, yeah, but like I think the third year, it wasn't nationals at that point. It was like a regional, but it was like the only contest in Australia. So I won that one.
That's awesome.
And then I kind of like kept the streak for like I think it was like 4 years.
That's awesome.
So I was like major nerd. And
that regional contest you kept winning, or the
so the regional contest was called the Sydney Yo-Yo Contest, but it was the only contest in the nation. So I consider myself like 4-time national champion.
That's sick. Yeah, why not? You should just tell people.
But on the official record, it's like I won the national yo-yo contest by IYYF 3-minute standards twice. So I won in
That's sick.
2014 and 2015. So
in America, if you live with someone for longer than 7 years, it's called common law marriage.
oh really?
Like the government considers you married. So like
Okay.
if you and your girlfriend break up, like your girlfriend can sue you
Oh
for
wow.
like
Okay.
alimony, basically.
Mm.
If I was you, I'd tell people I'm 4-time
Four-time
Australian
champion.
national champion.
I mean, I secretly feel that way,
yeah,
but
no
yeah.
one's double checking any of that stuff.
The official is 2 years.
Sometimes people will like come to yo-yo shows with me and I'll be like, yeah, I was a world and national yo-yo champion. They're like, you're not gonna like clarify and tell me you were 5A, and I'm like, you want me to explain? I'll explain to them what 5A is, but then as soon as you do that, they're like, what are the other 4 divisions?
Yeah.
Is there a 6A? Like, can you do a 12A? And it's like, oh my god, like please just watch me do elevator again.
Yeah.
I don't know. Growing up like without influencer culture,
Mhm.
like you feel so inadequate isn't the right word, but it's like who's gonna care about what I think? You know what I mean? And it's like the total opposite, where like
yeah.
yo-yoers are such big consumers of whatever, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
That like they don't care what it is. They don't care what you're
Exactly,
talking about. They
yeah.
just want to see you do something. Like
I mean, and I would say like in the yo-yo world, dude, you're a pretty like influential guy.
amongst the like the core culture, yeah, but like I'm trying to get more on your guys' level where like I can do more regular real world stuff, and like it's cool every time someone starts to hit the algorithm throttling them, where like Evan the last like month has been crazy to
It's
see,
been nuts.
and like
yeah,
like
he's killing it.
I think by like the end of August, Betty will probably be at 900,000 on TikTok or on YouTube, which is like insane. Yeah, but it's and it's working like in real life. Like I said, all these kids every day. Like this summer, I've probably taught like 15,000 kids how to yo-yo.
Wow,
and
that's
like
nuts.
but
So you're capitalizing off like the tail end of it, right?
Yeah, but it's like it's a like nice organic growth right now. It's very weird because like you'd expect like Angelo or whoever, like, oh, Stony Mac was really like the first kid, like, oh, you hit 100K on Instagram, and it's like, all right, that's the only one that the algorithm is gonna allow. Just like one popular one, you know what I mean? And then it's like, and then Angelo started taking off. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
yeah. And it was like, oh shit, like there's another one, cool. And then like Betty started popping, and then like I forget, I think you were soon afterward or something. Like everyone just hits, like as soon as they started throttling the algorithm toward reels and shorts and like all the short form content, like everyone's accounts just started doing really well. And it's like, as long as you're just posting that sort, I feel like you probably haven't posted much shorts and stuff, right?
There was a period of time where I was posting a lot,
but I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like saw everyone like blow up, and I was kind of like, oh man, this is kind of like, I'm kind of like missing out here.
Yeah, right.
And so I kind of wanted to jump into it. So I learned. So I had to like, I don't know, this is kind of coming back. I mean, you would have experience with this, but I feel as if yo-yoers are very like, they're kind of the laggards. They're very traditional and set in their ways. And I'm guilty of this as well. Like I remember when like Instagram became a thing and like trick circles were like really big. Yo-yo players were like, oh, they're not real yo-yo videos.
Yeah, no, 100%.
And there would be a delay between the people who were filming YouTube yo-yo videos and those who were jumping on to Instagram. And the yo-yo players that took a long time to make that transition lost out on like the attention that was there. So like, I don't know, like players like Polo, players like Riccardo Fratellini or whatever, they killed it on Instagram. And like they got the sponsorships, they got all of the material benefits that comes with like notoriety. And I could clearly see that like TikTok was kind of like the new thing. And like, I'm not gonna lie, like there was resistance to that. I didn't want to be that guy that does the DNA, all of it. And so ironic now.
It feels like
where I'm at.
You're cornering yourself in a way, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because like especially when you start like making your own products, you start playing the compare game and you look at other companies. It's like, all right, I like how they do it. So like, I want to start to emulate more of how they do it, but in my own way. And like, you realize it's like, all right, if I'm going to be like that, like I'm never going to be able to do TikTok because that brand would like Nike's never doing TikTok, and I want to be the Nike. So like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think like for me, I learned how to do it that way. And I kind of like, I took the style, made it my own, added a few of my flares to it.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, what I will say is that all the yo-yo players think it's easier than it is, but I would implore, like, I mean, like, you guys can do like tech combos and trick circles on Instagram and stuff. I would implore you guys, try blow up on TikTok.
Yeah.
It's like there's an art to it. There's levels of there's like storytelling principles and stuff you need to learn. There's a learning curve to it. So it's not as easy as everyone makes it out to be. That being said, if you post like 3 TikToks a day every single day for like 30 days, you got a pretty good chance
of hitting the algorithm one day a good way.
Yeah, exactly.
But like you said, is the storytelling elements and like everything that goes into it. A kid the other day at camp comes up to me and he's like, "Do you know Angel 2 Up?" And I was like, "Yeah." I'm like showing him DMs. Yeah, he's like, "Wow, that's so cool."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Why do you think he like talks into his yo-yo?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like, "Oh, like the thing he puts up in front of his mouth." I'm like, he doesn't. It's just like a thing he does, like for a look at, just like a distinctive thing. And he's like, "Oh, cool." But like, they're so observant of things like that. And like you said, where just the little differentiating factors that like, it's a little bit easier in a long form video where you have 3.5, 4 or 5 minutes, however fucking long you want to make whatever you want to in this video. And most yo-yoers just stand in a static position and do a trick, versus like you really make the most out of a 15-second clip. And like you said, all just the principles and elements that go into it, where like even the cinematography, where like you guys like add like the random bits of motion to where like the frame opens and someone comes in from the left and you pull it down from the top and then you pull it up from the bottom. Like it just, there's so many little elements that go into it that, like you said, you have to learn. And it's not just like that. It seems like common sense, but like you make a TikTok and you forget to do those little things. You're like, ah, shit, like it would look so much cooler if I did it this way. Or
I think the hardest thing is surrendering your ego and doing it. I felt a little
huge,
icky. When
it's
I was
so
doing
hard
it.
in yo-yoing.
Oh, it's awful. It's awful. And I feel as if so much success in yo-yoing correlates to your skill to be able to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like winning in contests involves sacrificing that really cool trick and doing something soulless and score point heavy. And I think like, I don't know. I don't really know how I feel about that, but I definitely think that would be the master skill. You kind of have to like prostitute yourself a little bit.
But you guys are doing such a good job at it, as far as like you said, finding the happy medium of like creating content that's palatable for the average consumer, but also still paying homage to regular yo-yo tricks. And like, I love everyone that explains like, oh, this is a 4A yo-yo, this is how 4A yo-yo works, and this is the Spider-Man trick. And it's like, that's fucking awesome, because like they're not doing that on America's Got Talent. And like, that's awesome that it's on that big of a stage, but it's like, that doesn't do us any favors. Like one time America's Got Talent came out to a yo-yo contest that was in Southern California, like just a pop-up one. It wasn't a California States or anything. And Anthony Rojas won. And there's like this lady in a pantsuit and a guy like in a really nice suit. And they come up to Anthony and they just like don't even introduce themselves or anything. They're just like, "Congratulations, Anthony. Like, we loved what you did on the stage. Like, we're from Fox." I forget what network it was. Was it Fox? NBC, whatever the fuck it was. Like, "We're from NBC and like we're reps with America's Got Talent. Like, it would be so awesome for you to like come out and perform on stage." Anthony Rojas, not like, and it's like I like interjected. I'm like, "Yo, this is not the guy you talk to." And he was like low key, like, "Oh, thank God, like, I don't have to talk to these people." They're like, "What do you mean? Like, you just won this contest? Like, you did an amazing job." And I'm like, Anthony is like a yo-yo player's yo-yo. Yeah, he's like a yo-yo. This guy is like the fucking like Van Gogh, like avant-garde. Like Van Gogh wasn't popular when he was alive, okay? Like Anthony's a god to me, but like he's gonna go on America's Got Talent and Simon Cowell's gonna laugh at it. And like, what's that gonna do to Anthony's confidence? And what is that gonna do for yo-yoing his confidence? No, you're not gonna get it. It was just so funny. They like, it felt like a scene out of like Superbad, or just so cliche, and like the big Hollywood execs coming to get the indie kid. And it was like, God damn it, like this is really how. And then when you realize like when you reach certain levels of that show, they like own your parts of your act, and like you can only perform for America's Got Talent. Like it just is very bad, and it's devolutionary to yo-yo. Like it doesn't help us go anywhere, you know? It just creates the facade of like, oh, you guys are like another circus clown. Cool. Versus TikTok and stuff that's building out like this world and universe to someone as if it's like a video game or something where you guys are characters and like you were creating a world for these kids to become a part of. And like they don't even fucking yo-yo, but they know the tricks you guys do. They know the mannerisms you guys make. They know your handles. Like they know everything about you, but they don't know how to yo-yo. And then we come and show them how to do it, and it just like connects the dots, and it's crazy to see.
It creates an ecosystem. And I think like I'm not a huge biggest fan. Like if I had it my way, I would only make like vlog style content. But like I think my intention with that TikTok content and the reason I was called to do it was like I don't know. I think it expands the community.
Oh, 100%.
And I think that everyone in the yo-yo community is trying to serve the existing community. But if we keep doing that and like we don't expand it, like we're gonna die. We're gonna be talking. We're gonna like talk to ourselves. We're gonna be like 50, and there'll be like 3 guys in there. So I think
it's catching up though. I feel like it's like even growth. Like that's why I was saying earlier. It's like a nice organic growth, and it's not just like Hasbro is trying to like force a boom to happen or something. It's like, oh, cool. Like all you guys and it's. Like you said, TikTok, like as far as the retention for content is concerned, people watching it and then actually going to buy a yo-yo, it's not as strong as like your content because I always love to bring up, the rapper Kendrick Lamar. So in America, they have what's called the Billboard 200, where they just will track the album sales and like the top 200, top 200 sales. So in 2013, he dropped his debut album. I think it was 2013, called Good Kid, Mad City. And like as of 2020, it had been in the top 200 selling albums for 8 years, which is like,
wow.
Yeah. And every week, so like every week, like X amount. And like, if you're on the number 200 spot, it's like whatever, 8,000 copies of an album, but it's like 8,000 physical copies. Someone's going out and buying 8,000 copies or the streams equivalent, whatever the case may be. So it's like for you to create something that timeless that's carrying for that long, like you have to put like work into it, and it creates like it's not just like it's not simple to make a TikTok, but the content is more palatable and it's like easier to understand. It's not as much effort that you would invest as to watching your vlog or watching you try to teach your dad yo-yo tricks or whatever the case may be. But it's like that content's going to draw the viewer in more. It's going to create a more like immersive experience. They're going to want to learn how to yo-yo more. Like people don't understand the game of impressions that it concerns in yo-yo, and like I'm sure you've seen where like you make a post on Instagram or you post the YouTube video and then you see A to B sales of like, I posted content A and then B sales an hour later. You know what I mean? Like it works. It's not a faulty system. Like it's not like, you're not going to sell 1 million yo-yos every time, but it's like TikTok isn't like that every time. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I think with TikTok, the algorithm is ruthless. It's like, I don't know, like
you're trying to get people to see 5 of your reels and then they buy a yo-yo versus they see you the first time and then they see you again. And like, oh, there's Brandon again. Like, oh, he's doing that DNA trick. Oh, it's upside down this time. Cool. And then by like the 5th or 6th time, like, yo, maybe I can do that. I'll buy one. Like
exactly. And I think with like TikTok, the followers don't really mean much. I think like you can have like 1 million followers, and if you put like a crappy video out, it'll bomb. It'll have like, I don't know, 10,000 views or whatever. So it feeds into like vanity and stuff, but I don't know. TikTok, I think, has done an amazing job with the yo-yo. It has expanded in many ways possible, but I think ultimately, I think like long form content is still going to be around. It's still very prevalent, and I think ultimately the person who figures that out to like a higher degree is gonna be
that's scientific,
very well positioned.
The scientific principle, like for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction, is so. There's so many live examples of it in yo-yo where like competition is not a thing now. So organic shape yo-yos are popular. You know what I mean? Like that's the reaction. Like no one wants to buy V-shapes because no one's promoting them because everyone's just at home yo-yoing. So they buy more interesting shit. And it's like yo-yoing is very reactive. Like no one's really like, no one's trying to like forecast and like, what are we doing in the future? It's just like, oh, TikTok is out. Cool. That's the wave now. Like, and like you said, I've been hankering to make like a dope long form video for a long time now, and it's like so hard to justify because like.
And what would you mean by a dope long form video?
Like, have you ever watched a skateboard video where it's like 20-25 minutes long? Every skateboarder will have their own individual part.
Like a documentary, you would say?
No, it's like, imagine if like everyone on a team. Did you ever see Undeniable, that Yo-Yo Factory video?
No.
So it basically is like a series of clip videos where like every player would have their own clip video, and then you'd have like B-roll between, and like everyone's part kind of like is edited to their personality, and you have like B-roll of you doing your alternative hobbies that like aren't yo-yo related and that sort of thing. So but like I would love to do something like that, like go up to Zaft and like go film him doing a couple skateboard tricks and film like a 2-minute long clip video, and then go down to Joe and like film some of his sneaker collection and film a 2-minute video with him. But it's like yo-yo it's hard to get them to watch. Like I'm not proud of the podcast. I'm like happy that the yo-yo community. I'm proud of the podcast, but like I'm happy the yo-yo community is so receptive to it and watching it as much as they are, because like when you look at the watch times for like a regular yo-yo video and it just automatically drops off and it's like, oh, people are watching 45 seconds of my 7-minute long tutorial. Like people are watching the podcast for a long time and like they're getting hundreds of hours of watch time. So it's like cool to see that people are genuinely invested and want to learn and are listening and watching. So like I feel like it'd be similar with long form content where like you just got to release it to the right people and promote it the right way. And you can't make it expecting like, oh, this is what's going to blow up my brand. It's really for like the yo-yo players that are like, they want that kind of content.
I mean, I've been in like the whole content game for a while, and like my initial philosophy was that like make content that I wish existed, or I wish like I wish existed so that I could consume.
That's always a great barometer.
Yeah. So like that was my and it's interesting in like the yo-yo world, like there are so many people with like proficient yo-yo skills that can kind of get to that level. Like for instance, like I mean, like Colin's in the room right now, so Colin, man. But like the scales guys, like they're doing like pretty cool stuff where it's like, I wish there was like more competitive analysis on like yo-yo players and stuff. And that like they're feeling that void and thus it creates a brand loyalty and it carves out a niche for them. And like, I don't know, I was in an era where like unboxings were really hot. And I was like, what if like you just unbox a bunch of yo-yos? And like that was cool until it wasn't. So I think filling demand in that way has been like a very interesting way to kind of fill gaps in like the content space. Yeah.
Yo-yo players, I'm a big proponent of everyone giving credit where credit is due. Like if you jack someone's trick and you like are just straight out doing their trick, like you don't have to be like, this is a Jason Lee trick. But like if someone asks you, don't be like, oh yeah, this is mine. Like say it's a Jason Lee trick. And yeah, yo-yo players, like you said, are so adverse. Like in the real world, that's like one of the first steps to success. Like you look at a successful person, do what they did. Yo-yoers like hate doing that. They're like, I don't want to be anything like that guy. I want to do the opposite. And it's like, why? Why would you do that when there's like a platform and a template already laid out for you? Like yo-yo design, it's the same thing where it's like there's 1,000 yo-yos you could like take bits and pieces from and make a really amazing yo-yo, but instead someone wants to like make something that looks like nothing else that's ever been made before. And it's like, there might be a reason why that's the case. Like that's might be.
I mean, I wasn't even referring to like jacking someone else within the yo-yo community.
No, for sure.
I was thinking of like, I mean, even taking parallels. So like, there are so many things that are like, I mean, it'd be so sick to like, I mean, the philosophy with my content with like the fast pace and the fast cuts and the mainstream videos was like, what would it look like if like Mr. Beast made yo-yo content? Yeah. And it would look something like some of my videos. It'd be heavily inspired, right? It would look like that. And like there's probably a demographic out there that like loves Mr. Beast and is kind of into the whole yo-yo thing, and bam, you've got like a flavor that hits.
It's perfect, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's probably I don't know, like a finance guy out there that really wants to get into the analytics of like yo-yos, and like I don't know, Scales probably hits that spot, right? So I think looking outside is a good way to kind of figure out a better way to serve the existing community.
Yeah, you guys and Scales have a lot in common where you're like willing to take those chances and put in the sweat equity. Like so many yo-yo players are like, and TikTok is a great example of that, where it's like you get that quick dopamine hit. Like you don't even need a lot of followers. If you just post enough, something's gonna hit. And like you don't need to post anything super impactful. Just like you can talk a little bit, you can yo-yo a little bit, just do something impressive and it'll hit eventually. But like yo-yoing takes a little more effort than that normally. And it's like to find someone who's willing to dedicate that time and effort is like a lot harder to come up on, you know? Yeah. So when I know you've probably covered this in like your own content and like, I don't know, a lot of my podcast viewers probably don't watch a lot of your longer form content. But like, when did you kind of decide to, because you have a degree in like marketing or something, right? Or
I have one in accounting. Okay. Which is it's laughable.
For some reason, I thought you had like a marketing job or something.
I sort of.
That's more respectful to me that you have a real degree and not like.
It's funny. I remember throughout my accounting degree, I would constantly say, like, one day it's going to be really funny that I have an accounting degree, and we're here. We're at that. we are. I manifested it. We're here.
That's
right?
amazing.
It's funny. Like, so it's like, yeah.
It's so crazy
I make
to think about
videos
that.
and I like sell yoyos on the internet, and it's funny. Like, Gentry was telling me about like his like, I don't know, like tax stuff, and it's like he knows more about it than I do, and I've got like 3 years worth of accounting degree, but.
He's been caught up in it for a minute, and Yoyo Factory like you're an independent contractor over there, so you got to learn quick how to fucking write off these fucking expenses.
It's a whole thing in of itself. I hate every fiber of it. Accounting, honestly, I think I might legitimately be the world's worst accounting student. Like, but I got a degree in accounting.
C's get degrees, man.
Literally, I like, it was funny. Like, I was so bad at it. I had to like. I remember I was like dating this girl that was doing the same degree, and like I'd study with her, and like she would do my homework. I was like a freaking terror. I was really bad at it. And I just remember thinking like, this is not what I want. And I remember up until that point, I was pretty good at like just outworking people, meaning that like I'm not the most talented person, but if you're putting in 2 hours and I put in like 4, I can bridge that gap.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking with it was just so awful that it's like an hour hurts me more than like, I remember I was sitting next to this guy. This dude was like, he was like, oh man, I read like accounting laws in my spare time. And I was like, I would rather like neck myself.
Yeah, that's insane. Oh my God.
So I grit myself through this degree, and I don't work in accounting. I have enough self-awareness to like realize that like I don't want to do this. So I get a job in Nestle, which is like they're like an evil company, and like they've done terrible stuff. But hey, they paid my paycheck and paid my rent. But I remember like I was inside this company, and that was kind of marketing related. I did a few marketing things, but it was in e-commerce, and I wasn't really learning much there. And it got to a point where I was kind of like, all right, I'm so profoundly miserable. And I get to the point where, and I kind of want to hear your thoughts on this. I was really of the opinion that like yo-yoing, I had gotten to, at that point, yo-yoing hadn't really blown up yet. And I was in a position where I had a pretty sizable YouTube channel. It was about 30,000 subscribers.
Okay, yeah.
And I, for the life of me, couldn't get that to grow.
Yeah, you were grinding really hard, trying to for a long time.
I mean, I wasn't super consistent, and I had stopped posting.
Not at the time. Well, because now in comparison, you're really consistent and you're like posting
well,
crazy,
I mean, I haven't posted in a while, but yeah, I mean, at the time, I wasn't super consistent with it, but I was kind of like, that's it, like 30,000, like that's the cap, like I did it, like I have my paper crown. It's like
it was. I
I
mean,
mean. And
I kind of looked at it the same way. I mean, Yo Tricks had more, but they had been at it for like a decade, and they only did tutorials.
And they were like doing like mainstream tutorials.
Like you're like trying to be an influencer in the yo-yo world.
Exactly.
And
so I was kind of like, well, that's not gonna work. Like you're already at the top, and if like you can't do this, like who can, right? And like it's kind of like in an like ironic stroke of like arrogance that in that moment like Gentry blows up with the whole PewDiePie thing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh. Dang.
When you see someone do it, you're like, all right, it's possible.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, all right, it's
when
possible.
you're a hard worker, that's how you look at it. Like if you're depressed and like not working to your full potential, you're like, fuck that, fuck PewDiePie. But like
there was a bit of that. I won't lie.
For like a second, but then you're like, word, like it's possible. Like, all right, so I got to do that. Like,
exactly. So like Gentry blows up. And he blows up with like a PewDiePie reaction video. So there's still doubt in my mind. I'm kind of like, well, it blew up because of PewDiePie. Like, it's not the yo-yo. Like, that's like a 1 in a million chance. Like, that can't be done again. And then, like, all these TikTokers start blowing up. And then I'm like, okay, all right. And everybody kept telling me that, like, no one cares about yo-yoing. They're like, it's cool for you. Like, it's your own little quirky thing.
Like not your friends, but like people you know and stuff.
People I know.
My friends, my family.
Basically, like my friends, I remember I was like dating this girl. And I was like, I want 2 million YouTube subscribers. And she's like, babe, you just need to be realistic. And I was like offended by that.
Yeah, I would be too, dog. That's wild. I'd be like, if I was your partner, I'd be like, how can we do? You know what I mean? How can I help you?
I broke up with her, but it was funny. Like I cite that as the reason why I broke up with her. It was the longest story.
No, I'm a big proponent of that. You know what I mean? Like when you got your mindset on something, like.
So, I mean,
You're not saying like I'm trying to have $2 billion.
Yeah,
It's like
right.
lots of people have 1 million YouTube subscribers and don't do shit. So like I have a pretty interesting hobby. Like go ahead, what were you saying?
But at the time, it did feel impossibly unrealistic. And I remember thinking like, all right, I don't know what I'm going to do. But I do remember thinking I don't have a choice. Meaning that's like, I can't do this like Nestle thing anymore. It's either I try this yo-yo thing or I like cataclysmically burn out in the Nestle thing and become like a degenerate. And I was already starting to get a little restless.
Yeah.
I was already going out pretty hard on the weekends. And I was like, you know, you're in this rat race where like the weekends kind of like help you forget the 9 to 5. So I was already going through a bit of that.
And then you just burn the weekend and then you're back on Monday.
So what happens is COVID hits, and during this time, 2 things happen. The first thing happens is everything's locked down. So all of a sudden, like my like party like lifestyle that has facilitated like my survival and my coping mechanisms, they're cut away.
Justifies you going to work and being
exactly. And the second thing is that like during COVID, a lot of influencers are starting to blow up because like watch time on these social media platforms is at an all-time high. So all these yo-yo TikTokers start blowing up. And a side part of the story is I move in with this guy who has his business completely blow up. And I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm young. I'm like, well, how old was I at the time? I was probably like 23, 24.
What did your roommate do?
He was tutoring kids online.
Okay.
So his idea was like, well, no one's tutoring, and he like blew up. He's like multi-millionaire.
That's awesome.
So like he tutored kids online, and like he showed me a bank account.
So crazy how like random things like that. Yeah. Because tutors in real life make okay money, but it's like.
But like if you have it, I mean, what he figured out is like if you have it online, you don't have capacity ceilings. So like that shit scales and scales fast, and you can make a fuck ton of money very, very quickly. And that kind of broke my preconceived notions. I remember one day he showed me his bank account. Like, you know how you like have a bank account and you're like, you know, I remember like the rough digits. There was $770,000.
Your roommate? Why the fuck is he? Why?
Yeah, I don't know. He seemed to like me for whatever reason.
That's
I was like,
so
why
funny,
are you here? Like, why don't you have like? I mean, okay, fair enough. He does have a mansion now, and we're not
That's
roommates
amazing,
anymore. He's on to bigger and better things. But I remember seeing that, and I was just like, okay. All right. I mean, this fucker's not that smart, right?
Yeah,
He's like, he's a driven guy.
He didn't go to Harvard.
Yeah.
Like, he just basic tutoring
exactly.
online. Like,
So I'm like, all right, maybe this yo-yo thing works. So I lamented on it for about 2 years, for about a year. And I think ultimately what I came down to was, and this is probably a privileged thing to say, but I was like, okay, I'm going to try and do this yo-yo thing full time. Balls to the wall. I probably had about like 10 grand in my account at the time. And I was like, if I fail, which is a likely possibility because no one had really done it before other than like Gentry or something.
Yeah.
And he's world champion. I was like pack filler.
Yeah.
I came like 47th in the world. Like the prospect of winning worlds was not on the cards for me. But I was like, all right, I'm probably going to fail. But worst case scenario, I fail. I have to move in with my parents. They'll be fine. They'll say I told you so.
And you say you tried.
And I'll say I tried. And then I just go back to like, I mean, I'll be like a 25-year-old in a dead-end corporate job. I mean, it's not like...
The worst regret is like not trying. You know what I mean? Like it's so cliche when people say it, but when you work really hard, that's just like... You'll think about it constantly.
Yeah.
I'm sure that year that you spent lamenting and like just thinking about your friend every day,
it was awful.
Caking up, you're just like, what am I doing? I'm still working this job. I'm not doing anything right now. What the fuck am I doing?
And that was like what my biggest fear was. So when I projected out like what my life would be like 4 years, 5 years, 6 years down that track, it's like, I'm going to be like just a miserable human being. And like, when I don't like something, like people call me like a driven and disciplined person. I'm not really. My only like saving grace is that I'm like passionate. And when I'm passionate, it doesn't like the work doesn't hurt because it feels fun.
Yeah.
And you can do more of it than the average person, and then you can like outmaneuver
such
them.
a big problem with normal people's careers where they have no passion about it. And it's like, it's a job.
Yeah, like working from 9 to 5 drains you, right?
Yeah.
So I took the leap. I was like, shit, this is not gonna fucking work. So I start off with like this daily vlog. And I try to make like these videos where I try to be like Casey Neistat. If Casey Neistat Yo-Yo, that was kind of my rationale behind it. And they were doing all right. They got about 1,000 views. But I remember my channel wouldn't grow. It would be like 5 subscribers one day and -7 the other. Jesus 2 subscribers Christ. One day and -8 the other.
And you're putting in a lot of work. You're not just making like a short. You're making 20, 25-minute videos every day.
I committed to making like 1 vlog a day for 30 days straight. And like when you live like Casey Neistat, you think like, fuck that. Like he wears glasses because he has fucking eye bags, man. Like I was sleeping probably about 2 to 3 hours a night just to get these vlogs out.
Right. I can't imagine how you would edit that afterward. And
it was like you live your life for the video that you're making.
Yeah.
So 30 days goes by, nothing. Like the channel stays exactly where it is. I've got 30 videos, I've got vlogs, but like nothing happens. And I'm like, well, that sucked. And then I'm like, I'm going to die of old age before I get to 2 million subscribers. So then I'm like, okay, well, why don't I like change the strategy up a little bit?
Yeah, you didn't give up. You changed the strategy.
Yeah. And I'm just like, all right, well, why don't I... So then I was like, okay, I'm going to take a radically different approach. And the realization I came to is that I'm making content for the established yo-yo creators. What if I change my perspective and create content for the beginner or something that is lighthearted and like entertaining.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, what does that look like? And I was like, well, I don't really know what that looks like, but what's working is these random TikTok things. So like these TikTok things, they have fast cuts. They're very like, they're not super technical. Everything that happens, they break down and explain it before it happens. And so I started creating what I call a mainstream video once a week, in addition to the 5 vlogs. So I would do that.
It's a wild output.
That's so I would just do that. And like the videos would do better. Instead of getting 1,000 views, it would probably get 3,000. But like that's not a seismic increase. So like
tripling is pretty good, but like when you're aiming for millions.
I mean, it's like if you're making $2 a video, right? And then you exponentially go to $8 a video.
Oh yeah,
it's like in absolute terms, it doesn't really do anything. So I'm like, okay, this isn't gonna fucking work. So I'm like grinding through this, like as my like the dollars in my bank account are going down, and I'm like, this was a really bad idea. I should have just stayed working for the man. Like
I could have did both.
Yeah. And then I think randomly, kind of one video. No. Before that, I was like, okay, all right. So then the final thing I did was like, all right, this whole TikTok thing, other yo-yo players have blown up on TikTok. Why don't I just do this TikTok thing? And basically I went and did the TikTok thing. And it was kind of like once I decided like that was like the last thing. I was like, I'm not going to do that.
That was your last ditch effort.
That was like I was like, TikTok is the final straw. So
that was your end all be all.
Yeah.
If that didn't work, you were going back to the salt mines in Nestle.
In Nestle, yeah. Well, and I think like ultimately what happens is like the spike goes up, the views, everything kind of blows up all at the same time.
Yeah, you're saying it felt kind of like it was overnight when you started with TikTok.
And a lot of people kind of assume that's kind of how it works. And I think for a lot of other creators, it kind of is. Like you can literally post a video and go viral. But like, I don't know, I had put in a lot of time up until that point. So like when like...
It was a big culmination of a lot of work
like when it hit, I felt like an immense sense of gratitude and satisfaction. So it was good. And like that was like the fulcrum that basically underpins how I live today. So...
That's amazing.
So yeah, that's basically it.
That's gotta be so, like you said, gratifying. Like, not like... The last thing you do when you've worked that hard for something, it's not like, fuck all those people, I proved them wrong. It's just like, oh my God, I can't believe this worked. Like, thank God. Like, I worked so hard. Like, thankfully this wasn't for nothing. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, I think I feel a sense of, I don't know. I think I put it into perspective because a lot of the kids that are blowing up these days, they don't have that like soul crushing 9-to-5 experience. So they don't understand like how lucky they have it that they're able to do something that they're passionate about And like I always chuckle a little bit when like I don't know when TikTok is like, oh my god, I'm so burnt out. I'm like, bro, you're making like 15-second video clips. Like it doesn't like there's like burned out is like when you're doing a 9-to-5 job you hate and there's only like 4 weeks of paid vacation and like you're stuck in there for the next 40 years. That's burned out. So that I don't know. That was the culmination. That's kind of how I kind of am where I am today, and like.
When did Offset Yo-Yos come into play, your brand? When did that start?
Oh, that's a good question. So Offset existed way back when. So like Offset, so there was this kid who like lived in, do you know what the Blue Mountains is? Mm-hmm. It's basically like rural Australia. Okay. It's like the middle of nowhere. And this kid kind of comes up to me. He wants to sponsor me as part of his brand. And it's really cool. It's really aesthetic. And I didn't really have any entrepreneurial tendencies within me at the time. This would have been about 2015. Oh no, maybe later than that, maybe 2017. And he tries to sponsor me for this company. And then I was like, you know what? Why don't I just co-own this company with you and we'll take over the world together? Right?
That's such a funny approach. Like, Ray, what's his name from McDonald's, Ray Kroc. Yeah. It's like, oh, let me just franchise this from you for a bit.
So like we try to tackle the world together, and we make like every dumb business decision you can possibly make.
Well, especially in Yo-Yo, like everyone comes into Yo-Yo thinking they're gonna like change something, or it's like, I don't like how this is going, so I'm gonna do it this way, and it's like there's a reason,
and there's a reason that it gets done that way,
right? And trust me, everyone's tried every other way.
It doesn't work. I mean, we made like a Yo-Yo with like brass rims, and like it was like the rims oxidized and fell off, and we're like, fuck, that's why everyone uses stainless steel. Shit. Okay.
Yeah.
And but basically what happened was like that company died with the YouTube channel. So I remember he kind of like pulls me aside one day and is like, yeah, dude, this isn't making any money. Like we weren't making any money off of it, and he was just like, listen, just have this company. Like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to do my own thing. And, like, here's the company. I don't even think we had, like, an LLC or anything. It was just, like, Offset. Yeah, that's the thing. And I remember when I started blowing up, I was kind of like, well, I got this company. Like, I mean, maybe I should just, like, release Yo-Yos under this brand. So then that's kind of I mean, I could have made a new one, but I was like, it's here already.
Yeah, it's here, yeah.
So I used that. That was the company that eventually facilitated a lot of that. So
that's sweet.
He left it. I mean, like it wasn't as if like I'd like screwed him out. No. By the time he'd left it, it was dead.
I was just making a joke about the McDonald's thing. It didn't feel because I remember you making like a big blog post about it where it's like you were very passionate about it and you wanted to like make this your full-time thing, and he was kind of like ready to move on with the next steps of his life, and like he just kind of like did such a good job at branding it and making it look so professional, and the content was so good that it's like, yo, how isn't this fucking massive?
Exactly.
And, like,
I think what it was missing was consistency, because we weren't consistent. I think he had the design prowess to do it. I had like a social media following. But we weren't taking it seriously.
It's such a grind. Like, Yo-Yo is a game of impressions.
I mean, you would know, right? Like, running Recess and stuff.
Because when I first started Recess, like, it was a flavor of the week brand. Like, it was easier to sell stuff. But now it's like, I have my core fan base. And then, like, beyond those initial 60, 100 people, like, it's a grind to sell the rest of the run. Like, it takes you posting every day and making videos and reminding people the Yo-Yos are out there. And, like, the second you're not posting about them, people forget they're out there. Like, I always, every month when I look at, like, my website visitors, I'm like, I'm losing out on so much money. I should be posting more of my personal products on here. But instead, I'm always like, oh, whatever, only 600 people a month look. And it's like, Yo-Yo Expert gets way more than that. And it's like, but I'm sure out of those 600 people, at least 50 of them would have bought something if there was something in the store to be bought.
Sure,
But yeah, that was an interesting story. And I mean, you guys have obviously expanded and made like a lot more Yo-Yos since.
I mean, I feel as if I'm pretty bad with the whole Yo-Yo design thing.
No one's really great. Like, it's not like Yo-Yo design has had like an Eames, you know what I mean? Or like anyone's come in and like changed the game and made some like revolutionary design. It's like we're all still just kind of like making emphasis on like Tom Kuhn's original bearing designs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
it's
it's
interesting. Like, you see some of those like old bearing yo-yos, and it's like not much has really
No.
changed.
Like
yeah.
it changed because like we took more time to make them. Like the concentricity of the
Yeah.
pieces is better. They spin better. Like it's been over engineered to like a point of exhaustion.
Yeah.
But it's like it's gonna be hard pressed to find what else like
yeah.
other than like yo-yos that spin extra long with
Exactly.
different bearings or whatever. But it's like all that goes out the window when you add 3 layers of string into a
Yeah.
trick and like.
yeah, for sure.
So what kind of plans do you guys have for the future though for Offset?
For Offset, I think I want to expand it. I want to make more yo-yos. I think a question I'd have for you is Recess is a brand that's been around for a while.
Yeah.
And like you've had like a team, I think. Like, what's your philosophy
through the ranks, yeah.
yeah. What's your philosophy for like choosing team members and managing that team?
Oh man, I am not so great at the management part. I'm great at like building a team or
Yeah.
like picking out the right people, and like
Yeah.
I'm great at like spotting talent and knowing like who's gonna be good. But like yo-yoers are very hard to manage or kind of like you can forecast their skill, but you can't necessarily forecast their like mental health or like emotional
Sure.
capacity to like handle
Right.
things and deal with things. And like a lot of yo-yo players are just acutely unaware of their position in life. Like they come from like a very privileged background, and then like they expect like
Yeah.
similar parents, like treatment that their parents would give them, that like
Sure.
you give them. It's like this is like it's supposed to be a job for you,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
like you know any littlest expectations just leads to like a huge. It's a two-way street. Like
Mm.
I don't regret anything I've done with Recess. Like I wish I could have paid closer attention to like managerial stuff and like maybe not grown as fast, and like it just once the ball is rolling it's hard to get it to stop, and then
Yeah.
like once you like you said you made like all the stereotypical business mistakes
Mhm.
earlier with Offset, and I
Yeah.
did the same thing with Recess where it's like, oh, like you want to just put this random guy on the team? Sure, we'll put him on. Like it's only going to cost a little bit of money every year, but then when
Yeah.
you times that by 20, and
Sure.
that SF post that they made recently was like
I read that.
it was very good, just about, and a lot of people who asked me like just through the rumor mill like, oh, what do you think happened with them? And I'm like, I mean, we all know how much this stuff costs to make, and like
Yeah.
we know how well they were taking care of their team, and like no matter how many of the owners have real jobs, like you're still spending a lot of money to like support this team, and like everyone has this great idea on paper of like, well, I came from the team that didn't pay for anyone's way, so I'm gonna pay for everyone's
Yeah.
way, and it's like that's all well and good on paper until
Yeah,
like
until you try to put it in practice.
yeah, and then you realize how much it actually costs on like your
Mm.
return on investment, and like when you have a Gentry or an Evan or someone who's like just the constant wheel of promotion, like
Yeah.
that title means something. But like
Mm.
to the average player, like Michael Nakamura, he's a world champion, but he's not selling 1 million off-string yo-yos or
Sure.
something. Like he's amazing,
Yeah.
but like he's not. That's not his lane. He's not
Yeah.
an influencer.
Yeah.
He's not like he's an amazing yo-yo player, and something uses him
Mhm.
as a benchmark of like, look, he's a fucking amazing
Yeah,
player. He
yeah.
plays our yo-yos. He's a reason you buy one of our yo-yos.
Mm.
But like we talked about the game of impressions, and just like when
Yeah.
you're not like the cool brand that's like, all right, we're only doing 100 of these yo-yos per year, and that's it. Like you're trying to be on that Yo-Yo Factory Caribou Lodge level where like
Mm.
none of our yo-yos ever sell out. Like
Yeah.
everyone's well taken care of. Like it burns you out quick, and
Mm.
like I don't know. Picking a team is hard, and like the older I get, and the more I try to be like open ended or lax with it, or like it gets harder. You know what I mean? Because the new generation is like they expect more and they communicate better than like we do, but
Yeah.
like also they like I don't know, like they work very hard, but like their expectations are very clear, you know,
Mm.
and like with a lot of our generation, it's like you just kind of are
Yeah.
expected to work, and then it's like, all right, like hopefully it works out, and like they don't
Yeah.
want that, you know, they want like a direct A to B, and it's like, you know, a lot of those people started their own brands, and it's like that's why a lot of brands like pop up and then disappear, because
Yeah.
it's really hard to run one of these, and it's
Yeah.
like people learn. Like Yo-Yo's just going through a growing
Mm.
like pain where it's like
Yeah.
we're getting too big for our britches, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah.
the industry is only so big, and everyone's trying to like expand the
Expand
size
it
of it,
out.
and like the pie is getting chopped up in so many different
Yeah.
ways, and it's none of it is a bad thing. It's just it's gonna take like an adjustment, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's gonna be like whenever the next like serious recession happens in the United States and nobody can just like reach out and touch a few $1,000s to make their yo-yo their dream model, you know what I mean? That's when like everyone will start getting more serious, and it's like, all right, like we have to buckle down, and like no one's just making project yo-yos anymore. Like everyone is a more serious brand. Yeah, teams are very hard. Even on Yo-Yo Factory, like it was like we had when I first joined Yo-Yo Factory, it was like such an amazing collection of like me, Shinji, Yuki, like everyone was a world or national champion, and then very quickly it like devolved into like, all right, like everyone who's the homies on, like everyone's getting free yo-yos, and like the first couple of years I was on the team, like everyone got all their shit paid for, and then very quickly it's like, all right, this is an outrageous amount of money that we're spending, and like no one's getting anything paid for it. And, like understandably so, it was like a team of like 50 people, and like what are you gonna do, like fly X random Russian player or X like player from random country that costs thousands of dollars, and like they you know they do nothing for the team like overall, you know what I mean? It's like they're great people, but like how do you justify that from a business expense at all? And when you are creating your own content and you see the click-through rate and like, all right, so me doing this, that was free and I work really hard and it's only as up to me and how much work I want to put into it, and I'm the direct benefactor to this versus like when you're working with someone else and they want all the reward and like only want to put in like a minimal effort. Not everyone's like that, but it's like you work with kids a lot, you know what I mean? And that's you're a 16-year-old kid. Like very rarely is a 16-year-old kid trying to like work for free, and especially when they come from like a privileged background that's like taking care of everything for them. So
well, I think like it's interesting. I mean, I think we've talked about this before, but that I think in our generation, well, I mean, maybe like, I mean, when I'm speaking my generation, I think like the 2009 and 2010 yo-yos, you're like way older than that. But like there was this idea that like if you got on a team, like the team would take care of you and do all these things. Like you were a yo-yo player that had made it.
It was like a lot harder, and the expectations back then were a lot higher. Like when you got on Yo-Yo Jam, you had to like go work the booth. Like when you went to Worlds, and they weren't like, they would help some people get to Worlds, but they weren't paying for like everyone on the team to get to Worlds. So it's like, but if you went, like you signed a contract every year to get on the Yo-Yo Jam team, and part of that was like, all right, you're gonna work at the booth for 6 hours during Worlds, or do 2 hours one day, 2 hours the next day, 2 hours the last day. Yeah, and you got to stand there and watch all your friends run around and have fun and get wasted and like actually go enjoy their vacation basically. Then you have to stand at the Yo-Yo Jam booth and help Jail, who's already a millionaire, make more fucking money. So it's like, where is the benefit of that to me? You know what I mean? But it's like, it teaches you discipline. It's supposed to teach you loyalty. You know what I mean? And but there's like Yuki, when he was on Yo-Yo Jam, never did any of that shit. He was very quickly kicked off. Like,
for sure.
But yeah, the expectations were a lot higher. You know what I mean? And it was like a lot more exclusive and like difficult to get on a team. Like it wasn't like everyone was getting invited. You know, similar thing in skateboarding where like all these YouTube influencers are like, well, I'm myself a pro model because like I'm not going to get sponsored by one of these actual skateboard companies. And it's like, it kind of ruined and devolved the whole status symbol of like, oh, you're a pro. Like someone chose to put your name on a deck. And it's like, it's not like the system in karate where it's like, oh, you get this Dan testing level and you're the X level belt. It's just like some arbitrary dude just decides like, oh, you're pro now. Great. And it was kind of the same thing in Yo-Yo where it's like random people would get random. Like Yo-Yo Jam used to give like tons of people pro models for no reason. Like they didn't have to be good at anything. It's like, oh, you've been on the team for 10 years. I mean, in
today's day and age, like there's a dude that like starts a company and makes himself as like, I mean, that's what I did, right? Like, so it's like the idea. I remember like it used to be a really big deal to get a signature yo-yo. And now it's kind of like it's so painfully common. Everyone's working on a super got one, prototype. And it's like, I don't know. We're in an interesting time. So
it takes away from it. But I mean, that was, again, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And that's why like SF came to play, where it's like, you don't even know who owns that company. Like you don't know anything about it. Like you don't know what the SF acronym stands for. Like it could be a lot of different things. And it's like, that was a reaction to everyone just being so like, like feeling like they had ownership of everything. And like, oh, look at my new yo-yo. And it's like, everyone was a pro, you know what I mean? And like everyone had clout all of a sudden just because you said you had it. And it's like, what if no one had clout? What if like no one had any of this? And I don't know. It was cool. Yeah, man. I think that will also change. I don't know. It's it's hard to say because obviously it's easier. Like when you make yo-yos, you make money, and like that's all people at the end of the day care about, and like that's what's gonna breed it's gonna breed discontent within the regular yo-yo culture, but it's also gonna breed more people coming in and just wanting to be influencers, just wanting to start their own brand.
I mean, I feel as if like my big vice, I was never really a big money guy, but like my big thing is like fame for whatever reason.
Yeah, the attention,
Yeah, and like that's the thing that kind of like gets me off. And that I would say I'm passionate about the content creation side. The Yo-Yo company, it like I mean I outsource all of my design work, and I work with like designers that make
99% of brands. It's very rare that the people who own the brand.
Exactly. So I think I don't know. I think we're at a place where Yo-Yo companies have been pretty stale for a while.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not really sure what the next iteration is, but I don't know. I'm just not at the forefront of that. I'm happy to be a fast follower.
Ditto. And it's been cool watching like Jensen and Chuck's brand ART come up, because that was like another big like it took like the rawness of like Recess and the other brands, but it took it back to like the indie level. Where it's like he wasn't trying to be like when I launched Recess, it's like I wanted people to think like, oh, I'm on the level of Yo-Yo Factory and Caribou Lodge. And it's like I should have really started to where like G Squared and all these other brands are, because the slower you grow, like it really creates like the lifelong customers.
Like
Versus like you just launch and people think like you're just some like you have
and then they have like, all these expectations.
Right. And then every time, their expectations is sky high. And I don't know what direction it's gonna move in either, because like everything's kind of reaching a critical mass as far as like lots of shit is selling, like lots of brands are popping up, like everyone. I thought like every time that like the influencer yo-yo community reaches a new plateau or pinnacle, I'm like, oh, it's over now. Like that's the last one. Like I thought it was over when like Stony Mac kind of fell off, and then like I kind of noticed a bunch of people that were making reels, like Angelo's reels, started to get less views on Instagram and stuff. But like when you look cross platform, like it's always going up, and it like might not be one platform, it's another one. Like YouTube, everyone is basically growing constantly. Like
I think,
and that's like
I think there will be like a moment where it stops growing, but
go ahead. I'm saying, sorry,
but I do think that like, I mean, my philosophy when I quit Nestle was I never really realistically thought I was going to go viral. And my idea was to service the existing yo-yo community. And like, let's say like 1 million people get into this community. It's like you can service the long tail of that.
Oh yeah, and that's way like
way more satisfying and like
lucrative long end than just like, cool, I got 1 million views. It's like you got 1 million not lifetime, but like a lot long-term customer. Like there's like a cycle of people when they get into yo-yo, and you buy a beginner yo-yo, and then you buy an advanced yo-yo, and then you're like, oh, what kind of fucking string is there? What kind of bearings? Like, you get caught in this cycle, and like once you exit that cycle and you're no longer spending money within the industry, or like
once you get to like our level and you're like jaded, and
you're not spending
anymore,
money.
It's like it's too late. So
you brought up a really good point earlier, just about like how you were kind of cocky coming into yo-yoing, and I think that's a good thing, because like yo-yoing is so humble to a fault, where like it creates that jaded view where it's like yo-yoing is whack. Like I'm guilty of it, you know what I mean? And I try not to be, like, because it's so easy, it's so contagious amongst all of our friends, and they're like, you're right, like I don't like this anymore, even though we're at a yo-yo contest, we're all standing here and we paid thousands of dollars to get here to hang out with our best friends, and then it's like, no, this is whack, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, then why are we here? And that's one thing that I like, the positive mental attitude influencers bring to yo-yo, and I think is a really welcomed attitude, where like the regular yo-yo culture is so like they hate it, they hate what they do, like this thing that they spend money on and are obsessed with. They're like, this is whack, like I don't want to do this anymore. And
I feel as if in the influencer space there's a bit of like obnoxious optimism in there, and I think I'm a proponent of that. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, like, you can be negative, you can be like optimistic about it, but like if you're positive, like there's gonna be a kid, like it's always funny to see like how positive Yoyo was at like the 3 to 4 year mark. Like the world's their oyster, and they get to like the 6 to 7 year mark, they lose a couple contests. How quickly they sour.
I've never thought about that, but that's a great point where like they try to make a run for it. And then it's like, oh, I'm actually kind of bad at this thing I'm really passionate about. It's like, no, you're just not made to be on stage. Lots of people are. That's fine. Like
exactly. So it's like I think that like yo-yoing in general needs a bit more like positivity from its elders, and sometimes it can be a bit obnoxious, but I think overall the community's negative, a little bit jaded. So I think I don't know.
That's an interesting point you bring up. Review of like, oh, we need a kick in the ass from the elders, because like that's like when you are on like the administrative boards for like the National Yo-Yo League or the IYF, it's just like everyone is a jaded fuck on those boards. Like barely anyone wants to be there contributing, and it's like, and I understand why. Like it's not a paying job. Like they're trying to do everything. It's like a thankless job. Like we all complain the entire like, oh, we hate this contest. Make it better for free. Like come on. Like I don't want to spend any more money. But yeah, it's reaching, like we said, a critical mass, and like I don't know. I don't think that it's gonna be like there's not gonna be a fidget spinner kind of fall off. Like I think it's gonna maintain its relevancy, and like because the people who are getting interested now, like they're not. There's no facade or like I don't know. I feel like again, like bringing it back to American like little league sports where it's like there's this facade where it's like you could go pro, or like if not you're gonna get into college or whatever. Like most people who get involved in yo-yoing now purely are doing it for the fun or like the recreation of it, and not like, oh, I'm trying to get good as hell and like I'm trying to be one of the guys, I'm trying to be up there, the 1%. They're like, why would I ever want to do that? Like, because people who realistically come in from the outside world and they are smart and they know like, oh, it's keystone margin, all these yo-yos most of the time are getting marked up 50%, and like they're like, you know, you look at how many yo-yos Andre buys and you're like, all right, so like Andre's making okay money, and like how much is the manufacturer making, and like how many other stores are Andre size, and like you like start running the numbers, and it's like regular people don't come into yo-yo and they're like, oh, you guys must be killing it and you're selling a ton of yo-yos and you're so lucky. They're like, the fuck, how are you surviving? Like, very carefully on the fucking thread on the edge of the earth. But yeah, so it's cool to see that kind of shift, because I felt like for so long it was like people get involved in yo-yoing and they're like, yeah, I'm trying to be good, and it's like, why? Like the people who are good are not getting very many benefits. Like, so you're gonna end up hating yourself and realizing you're like wasting time and energy and money on something that like isn't giving you the same amount of return. Like
well, I think like yo-yoing is in like I don't know. I think that like whenever I feel like I'm getting burnt out, I always come back to the fun aspect of yo-yoing. And it's so easy to like,
you remember why you started doing it.
And it's like fun. Like, I mean, everyone enjoys it for like different things, but I like the process of like grinding the same trick over and over again. I like the process of like preparing for a contest and doing all of that. So I think at the end of the day, you know, like we're all dudes, or you know, we're all playing with toys, and I mean, if you want to make a career out of it, you're gonna have to take the good with the bad, right?
Yeah, it's I forget what point I had, but yo-yoing it's crazy.
For lack of a better word.
What's the future plan with Offset? I think I may have already asked that. But
I think the future plan for me is to kind of just expand the company, I'd love it to be independent from me. Right now I feel as if like it's close, like it has a symbiotic relationship with me, and when my content expands, it kind of expands the company itself. I would love the company to be independent from me, so that like if I ever decide to like step away from the content stuff, it can exist in that capacity. Yeah,
that was such a big thing with Recess when I first started. I remember like after I passed my follower count, like my brand had more followers than me. I was like, this is sick. Like it's getting bigger than me now. Exactly. This is what I want. Like I don't want people to think like, oh yeah, Tyler, Recess. It's like, oh, Recess and Tyler. Like, cool. Like, and that's kind of where it's at now, and it's a good feeling because like, but it's been me stepping out of the limelight and not like trying to claim ownership of it or whatever, and just letting it do its thing. But yeah, that's a good goal to have. Like it be an autonomous brand and like exist independently of you.
Yeah. And I think like
how Duncan is, you know what I mean? No one thinks Donald F. Duncan.
I wouldn't say that like that's a primary goal. I think for me,
like long term, like what you ultimately would want it to be.
Yeah. And I kind of want to like diversify. That's a very strategic kind of like analytical word. I think I want to expand the content I make. So I've kind of figured out how to do this whole viral content thing within a yo-yo context. But I think ultimately, like, what I'm most passionate about is like telling stories and, you know, articulating different things. And I would love to have a more accessible platform that isn't just yo-yoing. And I think that would be a goal of mine. I'm not really sure how to execute on that. I've taken steps to kind of do that, but that's all kind of in the works.
That's super dope. Yeah, just knowing that direction is amazing because like in yo-yoing, it's super hard to figure out what that next step is.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, we're gonna make this yo-yo next. And the world is in 6 months, and we'll do another yo-yo then, and then Christmas is 6 months after that. So for you to have that in mind, even if you have no idea how to accomplish it, like I have so many not tunnel vision. What's the word? Like for something you don't know how you're gonna get there, like you're on your way. Like you have that goal ultimately, and it's like it's good that you know you're headed in that direction. And like we were talking about earlier, why aren't there more like yo-yo players utilizing their platform and all these millions of subscribers and followers they have to like do other things with yo-yo, but like with different brands outside of yo-yo? And like I can only imagine what ideas you have in mind because like you said you enjoy storytelling and like you doing a movie would be so cool, you know what I mean? Not like a yo-yo related movie, but just like any sort of movie and like having content accompanying it or like doing other content on your channel that wasn't yo-yo related. Like I could totally see that expanding in different directions, and like it's cool to think about like even that in itself, like the yo-yoing content could be autonomous and like you just spend a couple days a month like crunching and filming 10 fucking yo-yo videos. You do it Mr. Beast style and they're high budget and you do something cool and then you put out those videos and that pays for you to go make a short film, like go do something else that's like satisfying, more creative drive, but also like expanding your career because that's a new job for you. That could be, if you are good at that, like that could be a new passion, a new career.
I mean, I'm wildly optimistic about like digital content creation. I think it's not going anywhere. In fact, it's probably expanding.
Oh yeah. Every year wildly. And it's like, I don't know. It sounds so cheesy, but I'm sure you've had these epiphanies in yo-yo where like when you were trash at yo-yo, you looked at people who were really good and you're like, fuck, I'm never going to be that good. And then you're now that good and you're like, yo, like I did that shit. Like, I did that. Like I thought I was going to be bad forever, but I just put my nose to the grindstone and like I went from trashed and I'm very good now. And it's like, I just remember that like when, and it's fresh in my memory. Like I can remember, but I just remember that feeling and how it feels. And it's like, yo, you can apply that to like anything in life where it's just like, oh, I'm really bad right now. But like in 6 months, I'm going to be way better. And it's like,
it's funny I'm hearing this from you, dude, because I like grew up in the era where like your Yo-Yo Factory videos popped off and I would like watch like a Severe video or whatever and I'd be like, I'm never gonna be that good.
That's hella funny because I was probably thinking the opposite in that video, like God, I'm so trash. Like, I guess I'll put this video out. Shit, like
dude, it was amazing to see. Like I mean, like the video that sticks out to me is like, I don't know, there was a video where you're like lamenting that you can't do seasick.
Yeah,
and you're doing all this other crazy shit and I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, I think a lot of players like kind of, I don't want to say overestimate their skills, but like, yeah, right around that Severe video is when I really felt like my skills were expanding and I was getting better. And like, I don't know, people reach their pinnacle so quickly now that they don't have time to grow and expand and they just kind of, I don't know. It's interesting. And yo-yo trick innovation at the time was like so, like we weren't at the level we are now where people are so good and like if a new concept gets introduced like at the beginning of a competitive season, by the end people already have like the over the head variation, like horizontal variation, like everyone is pushing it to the max, or like the like fucking beef hook and tension hook and all those are great examples because like now everyone's doing triple, quadruple variations of them. It's great. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see where yo-yoing goes, and I'm excited to see how influencers start to expand upon it and start to do other things outside of yo-yoing. And like people in yo-yoing do so much interesting shit that's not yo-yo related.
Yeah.
And like when I look at what everyone's been able to accomplish with a yo-yo that's like inanimate, and like how we're able to capture all of our like attention and like our friendships and everything, it's like we are all such unique and individual people in our own rights. And like I don't know, it's hard, like it's easy for me to make friends with other yo-yoers, but for a regular person who doesn't really have many passions in life and like isn't really interested in anything, and they're just kind of floating along doing their thing, it's hard for me to relate to that. Like I definitely cannot have a 2.5 hour long conversation with them where like it's balls to the wall the entire time. And yeah, it's interesting to see where yo-yo will go from that, and like who's gonna expand upon it more. And like I don't know, it's interesting.
I think I'm optimistic about the future of yo-yoing. I think it's due for an expansion, and I'm glad I'm still in it, and I've been able to reinvent myself. And I don't know where it's gonna go, but
I think with the internet, it gives people like a very concise pathway of like one part of the industry could be like going down in flames. Like, no one gives a shit about it. Like competitions have been regularly decreasing in attendance, decreasing in popularity, decreasing in participation for like 4 or 5 years now. But it's like yo-yos continue to sell. You guys continue to expand influencer wise. Like I can't imagine any other industry where that's like skateboarding is the only other one where it's like skateboarding continues to grow every year, but like no one wants to go to the contest that's sponsored by Nike and they give away $500,000 to the winner. Like it doesn't matter, you know? That's everyone's solution to young was like, we just had one corporate sponsor to give away a fat check. It would solve everything. And it's like Duncan is the first to step up with $5,000 and it doesn't do anything, you know? Fly everyone out to the contest, pay them all. Like, no.
That didn't work.
Right. Like, I love to bring up those, not that failure particularly, but like just every time everyone always expects like yo-yoing, like that next thing is what's going to take it to the next level. You know what I mean? Like, when Gentry and everyone was on the Steve Harvey show and it's like, oh, like Shu being on America's Got Talent now. It's like, I've only had 2 or 3 kids mention America's Got Talent to me the whole summer, but every single day kids ask me about DNA, they ask me about Angelo, they ask me about DNA, they ask me about fucking Going Godspeed, they ask me about Spider-Man. Like that blew my mind the first time a kid in public asked me about your Go Godspeed, and I was like, what did you just say to me?
I actually, like, a kid went up to me and said, can you do the DNA? I was like, how do you know that?
Yeah, it's like a weird language that they shouldn't know. And it's like, because they don't know even what it is. Like you can do UFO and they're like, oh, that kind of looks like a tweet. But then you're like, oh, you do it on your finger and like, oh shit, oh my God. And that's all they want to learn. They don't care about like throwing it up and down. They instantly just want to learn DNA. And
I feel as if we're rebranding it on a grassroots level. And it's not a company. It's I hate the word, but it's influencers that's doing it.
No, it's true. And it's good. It's a good thing. Like influencers in other industries do a lot of damage, but in yo-yo, I think it's like an overwhelmingly positive influence.
I mean, being in this space, I don't want to like over serenade influencers. I mean, there is an opportunistic element to it, but I do think that like there's a net positive, I feel. So
yo-yo influencers aren't like other industries. You guys are all like very humble and aware of like your standing in like the yo-yo industry. And
we're just afraid to get roasted by the hardcore yo-yos.
Yeah, like everyone
they
just
keep us
happy.
humble.
Yeah, and then like when regular yo-yoers are big up and you guys like, oh, thank you. Which is hilarious because they just shit over everyone. Like regular yo-yo players like shit on anyone that's like trying to do anything with yo-yo, and like influencers shit on everyone in a good way because like they're men lie, women lie, numbers don't. You know what I mean? It's like you can't look at someone who's got all these subs and they're all the numbers they're putting up and be like, oh, that's not doing anything for yo-yo, or this is damaging yo-yo. It's like, I've seen the proof is in the pudding. Like, it's only doing good things for yo-yo. Trust me. Like I'll do DNA all day if it means all my friends are going to make way more money and we're going to get a way more influx of interest. Like do it all day. Oh, dude, are you going anywhere else in America while you're here? When do you depart back to Australia?
That's a good question. I was thinking of visiting Jeff in Canada for a bit.
Okay,
No cards on the table. Nothing confirmed.
Would you be able to go without like a visa or anything to go to Canada? Or?
I think because Canada is like they're part of the
North America or whatever.
Not even like what is it, like the British monarch or whatever?
Okay, I have no
like
idea.
That. I don't even know, but like Australians are allowed to go in there apparently.
Okay.
So
like whatever Royal British Canadian.
That
okay,
thing, yeah.
I get what
so
you're saying.
like,
Yeah. Interesting.
So that might be alright,
dude. You should do that. Yeah, you should.
Yeah, I was thinking about it.
Canada's sick. He lives in Vancouver, right?
Toronto.
Or Toronto,
which is like just a plane ride over. It's like a couple hours. So I
Yeah.
was thinking about that. But other than
you
that,
should go if you can find a weekend or whatever. Like, because he works on a bunch of cool projects up there.
Yeah,
like,
Jeff is like the coolest dude ever.
You get a ton of cool content up there with him. Like, it would totally be worth it. Like,
yeah,
I would highly recommend that. And Canada's sick. Like, it's not like the United States where like there's a very different vibe there. Like, everyone's very chill and relaxed. And,
I've heard that.
They're like hustle and bustling, but it's not like New York is like a different kind of hustle and bustle.
Yeah,
you know
there's
what
a
I mean?
vibe to New York that I've had the like pleasure of experiencing, and I really enjoy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just funny because like the New York Yo-Yo Club is nothing like the regular New York vibe.
No.
Like, I love the New York Yo-Yo Club, but they're just so like.
I mean, I've hung out with the New York Yo-Yo Club. They're like, but I feel as if they're like very recreational yo-yoers.
Yeah,
and
they're serious, like but you're right, like they're there for fun, like they're not like people are trying to get better and like they're selling yo-yos and they're hustling, but like
I mean, I'm like a nerd, I'm like an overachiever, a tryhard at this competitive thing. I'm still trying to go for like competitive titles and stuff, so that's kind of where I see myself slotting into this whole yo-yo world.
It's a good time to do it because like you're building up like your catalog of content and like it'd be a good time, like we were talking about earlier, where like even if you don't necessarily do well competitively, it still works. Like the content works.
Yeah, it
like
still synergizes.
It's not like a regular person. Like Colin and I can attest to where you just like spend
Yeah.
dozens of hours or tens of hours, or worse comes to worse on a bigger contest, like 50, 60 hours practicing for one freestyle, and you just completely fuck it up. Yeah. And you're like, God damn it. Like, that was like earth shattering to me the first time that ever happened. I was just
really?
like, oh God, like how could this have been so bad? Like I've never fucked up this bad. Like, you feel like you let everyone down. Like everyone looks at you differently after everyone's lying. You're like, oh, you did good. And you're like, no, I didn't. Like, no, I didn't. And you want to do better. And
that happened to me at US International. I didn't land the freestyle I wanted to.
Was that the Vegas contest or
no? That was this at US.
Oh, the international division.
Yeah,
okay,
international division, and I just didn't land it how I wanted it to, and just like, oh man, shut up, I didn't do well. Like,
it's the worst because it's so it's fake, you know what I mean? Like they're trying to make you feel better. Like anytime that happens, I just always like, oh, you'll get them next time, or like that sucks, man. I'm sorry, like you'll do better. Like yeah, I tried to be like really nice to Kieran one time after he bombed really bad. He was like so upset. I was like, "Oh, dude, like you're gonna do better next time. Like you're everyone wants you to do good. Like you just gotta like one time you're gonna do good, and that's gonna put you ahead." And he just had like the biggest ice cream cone he was eating. He just was like, I hate everything, and I'm like, I know, man. I know exactly how you feel. Like I'm sorry.
It's the saltiest.
Yeah, it's the worst. Right? It's so bad, but like. What are you supposed to do? You know, you just gotta.
There's nothing really you can say that'll make it better.
It sucks because when you're practicing a trick solo dolo, like alone, like you can fuck up and then you just roll the yo up and try again, or you're trying you're creating a new trick, same thing. You're like, oh, that mount doesn't work. Let me try this one. But like you fuck up one stage and you've been practicing all this time for one shot, and then you're like, Jesus Christ, like, that's cool. Yeah, you should definitely go to Canada.
Sure.
You've been here now for like 8 weeks, right?
Yeah, I've been in the US for quite a while, hoping to get deported, but
or experience a mass shooting, knock on wood, or get monkeypox, also knock on wood. Yeah, you've been in America for 8 weeks, and
I mean, I got COVID.
You got COVID since you've been in America. Okay, did they overturn Roe v. Wade since you've been in America?
What's that?
So that was like the in America, like the highest court is called the Supreme Court, and they have all these amendments to the Constitution, which is supposed to be like the bare minimum of laws in America, like your right to freedom of speech, your right to like bear arms, like carry a gun, some dumb shit, some shit that makes sense. But one of them was a landmark case called Roe versus Wade, and it was like the right for women to have like access to get abortions after like certain certain points in their pregnancy, and they overturned it recently, like in America, making it like really difficult for women to get abortions in certain places.
I think I've heard about that.
It's just been like a very intense couple months in America, and like,
I mean, I've seen it on my feeds and stuff. And
and it's interesting coming from another country where like I don't know how hard it is to get an abortion in Australia, but like it's I don't know. It's similar to like gay marriage, where a few years ago, like I think some random country finally legalized, and everyone was kind of like, oh, finally, right? Even later than the U.S. And it's like all this shit is gonna be so far behind, and then they like are doing things like that to overturn. It's a crazy time to be in America, and like it's just interesting you're here for it, and like it's kind of good though that you're like aloof to it and you're not, because it's not like it affects you really personally.
I'm a pretty politically ignorant person, I have to admit, so like I don't
really know, man. In Australia I feel like it's a little bit different. Like, isn't it like mandatory to vote there, right? You have to vote.
Yeah I mean, you have to vote. I mean it's not end of the world if you don't. You get like a $50 fine or whatever. But
it's enough to encourage you to go vote. Like,
exactly. So,
it's probably more of a pain in the dick to pay the fine than it would be just to go vote. So like yeah, that's interesting, because people, when they hear about that in America, it's like, what do you mean people just choose not to take part in a democratic process? It's like, yeah, some people just don't, like they think they're above it, or like it doesn't genuinely contribute to the I don't know what they do. But yeah, it's a crazy time to be in America, so that's interesting.
Well, I'm glad
I'm here. Any departing words?
I would say we've been conversing for an hour.
Way longer than an hour. Holy shit.
I mean, Colin's probably ready to like jet, so I think I'll keep it brief. I would say thanks for having me on your podcast. It's been really sick.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me in your lovely
I mean, you've been a player I've looked up to for quite some time.
Oh, man.
Be on the other side of the mic.
I look up to you now. Trust me. I'm looking at your social blade every 2 weeks trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. Trust me.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know. Like, it's cool that people like my tricks and everything, but it's like you said earlier, you want like the influence and like not influence, but like, you know, you want to be able to change things, or like you're passionate about yo-yoing, so you want to be able to contribute. And I don't know, when you put that much effort into it for that long, it's like, oh, I want to be on that level, you know what I mean?
So. I think it comes down to like how much you change your perspective. And like that has ultimately been the catalyst for me.
Which you touched on earlier, and like it definitely, I'm 31 now, and that gets harder the older I get, where like I try to be more open-minded, and I am, but it's like when something works and you're just like, all right, cool, like you're like, that's the end all be all, and it's like it's the opposite. Like when things work that way one time, you should like flip the script and do it a completely different time the next time. And like, I don't know, I harp to kids so much that like your brain is a muscle, and like you got to learn as much as you can, and like every time you learn one of these yo-yo tricks, like you're doing a push-up with your brain, you just feed them all this shit, and then it's like I don't even really register it myself. I'm just like, oh god, all right, like make another organic yo-yo, fucking put it out. But dude, thank you so much for having me.
This has been super fun, man.
It's been amazing.
Thank you for having me.
Hopefully America doesn't scare you off too much and you come back.
We shall see.
I like how you said it that way. Peace.
Sick. See you guys.